Chapter 8:13. Crash. Possessi smashed into the ring-shaped sea, and 100 meters of water splashed up. The ring-shaped sea's sinking caused the sea god's mountain to tremble. The scene in front of them made everyone's jaws drop. They were so shocked that they were completely dumbfounded. It was too familiar, especially Tang San and the rest. Wasn't this scene the same as when they were smashed into the sea by Possessi yesterday? It was almost exactly the same. They didn't expect Possessi to also. How is this possible? The 7 Saint Pillars were even more dumbfounded. The 7 of them rubbed their eyes as they watched this scene. How could Lady Possessi be smashed into the sea by her opponent? The situation should be the complete opposite. There must be something wrong. The 7 of them rubbed their eyes frantically before opening them again. They wanted to see it again. However, when they opened their eyes again, they could only see a figure rising from the ring-shaped sea. It was Possessi. At this moment, Possessi's entire body was enveloped by a layer of faint light, as if she had absorbed some special energy. However, her expression was a little gloomy. After so many years, she was the first person to be smashed into the ring-shaped sea by someone else. Even the 2 people back then didn't do this, but they weren't that strong back then. She had been at rank 99 for many years. Although this attack didn't cause her to suffer any injuries, it still caused her to lose face. Possessi let out a soft roar. She seemed as gentle as water, but this roar gave people a feeling of boundless vastness. At the same time, the sea god's martial soul projection also let out a long roar, and its entire body erupted with an intense blue light. Possessi's 8th and 9th soul ring suddenly lit up. As these 2 soul rings lit up, the scepter in Possessi's hand continuously emitted an intense ball of light. 9 water pillars suddenly rose from the ring-shaped sea below and quickly formed 9 huge water dragons that were even bigger than the sea god's dragon. Ong. These 9 water dragons were filled with spirituality, although they weren't real. Every one of them exuded the aura and ferocity of 100,000-year soul beast. The sea god martial spirit's shadow leaped high into the air and landed on the head of one of the water dragons. Possessi was the same. He jumped onto the back of a water dragon and looked coldly at the ball of white light on the sea god mountain. In a battle, Possessi naturally wouldn't hold back. The other party's strength was not unexpected. His domain was indeed powerful. But so what? Possessi waved the scepter in his hand. The 9 dragons were led by the one under the feet of the sea god's martial spirit. They charged towards the green light pillar in the center of the green and white domain, which was where Wang Feng was. Rumble. The moment the 9 dragons were enveloped by the 5 direction domains, they were bombarded by several 2-colored light cannons. However, the 9 water dragons seemed to be full of intelligence, and they opened their mouths to spit out water pillars, which collided directly with the 2-colored light cannon. The sound of explosions filled the entire domain. Then, the 9 dragons attacked Wang Feng, who was in the middle. Wang Feng's eyes flickered. These 9 water dragons didn't have any divine attacks because they were pure water energy. Furthermore, they were very powerful. Wang Feng wasn't afraid. He was invincible in the innate 5-direction domains. Seeing the 9 water dragons coming at him, Wang Feng didn't even think about it. With a single punch, he directly blasted the water dragons apart. The intense explosion reverberated in Wang Feng's domain, but it didn't hurt him at all. The last 2 dragons were attacked by Possessi and the sea god martial spirit Shadow. Possessi could tell that Wang Wu wasn't hurt at all in this domain. Any form of damage would have no effect on him. This was because even if the water dragons exploded, the area of effect damage would be very large. Furthermore, when the 9 dragons were stacked together, the explosion would be even more powerful. Even if the opponent was blown apart, he would still be severely injured. Possessi squinted her eyes, and her body was covered by a layer of light blue light. Any spiritual attack from the innate 5-direction domains was blocked by this layer of light blue light. She wouldn't let herself be taken advantage of a second time. This layer of light blue light was her 6th soul skill, sea god spirit accumulation barrier. It allowed her to be immune to any spiritual attacks for a certain period of time. It also had many defensive effects. At the same time, after the 9 water dragons exploded, the sea god martial spirit's shadow attacked Wang Feng immediately. As a martial soul true body, the sea god martial spirit was the most peculiar one Wang Feng had ever seen. This was because he couldn't tell if it was a beast martial spirit or a tool martial spirit. The development of martial spirits in the Douluo world was too simple. There weren't many people who were interested in researching martial spirits. This was why Wang Feng didn't know much about martial spirits. However, he didn't plan to win against Possessy this time. His goal was very simple: seeing the sea god martial spirit's shadow approaching. The trident in Wang Feng's hand shone with a cold light. However, Wang Feng didn't dodge. He took the trident with his bare hands. The huge power made Wang Feng retreat quickly. Wang Feng snorted coldly, and with a thought, the Netherism flying sword had already formed within the domain out of nowhere. A backstab stabbed towards the back of the sea god martial spirit shadow. Wang Feng grabbed the trident with both hands, causing the sea god martial spirit shadow to be unable to move. The mysterious Ming flying sword carried a force as strong as a mountain and directly pressed down. At the crucial moment, a scepter blocked in front of the sea god martial spirit's shadow. Block. A crisp sound brought about a violent tremor, causing the entire domain to explode with a wave of energy. Seeing this, Wang Feng's torso bones suddenly erupted with an icy, dazzling light that brushed towards the sea god martial spirit's shadow. The humongous sea god martial spirit's shadow was so close to Wang Feng that it couldn't be dodged. His body was quickly covered in ice by the spirit's seal soul skill. Perhaps it wouldn't last for long, but it was enough, because Wang Feng was going to deal with Possessy. At the same time, a strange light flashed across Possessy's eyes. She directly sent the mysterious Ming flying sword flying with her scepter. Borrowing the momentum, she directly hit the sea god martial spirit's shadow with her scepter and directly shattered the ice that had just covered it. However, at this moment, one of the innate 5-element flags in the 5 directions of the domain suddenly shot out a blazing light at Possessy. As the light descended, it instantly corroded the aqua-blue light barrier on Possessy's body, causing her to be stunned. What soul skill is this? It can even negate such an invincible soul skill? What kind of joke is this? The moment the light barrier disappeared, Possessy's mind was violently impacted. Her expression changed slightly, and Possessy quickly retreated. However, it was already too late. Dragon Extreme, Falcon Kill, activate. Almost instantaneously, Wang Feng was in front of Possessy. Following that, 3 arcs of light slashed down. Possessy snorted coldly. Even though her mind was constantly being impacted, her spiritual power was still vast. Her opponent didn't have time to release that weird syllable in time. In addition, her spiritual power already had some resistance, so she wasn't unable to retaliate. Immediately, Possessy gently tapped her scepter on the ground, and the soul rings on her body lit up again. After that, she casually raised her hand, and there was a ball of aqua-blue light in her palm. After that, she directly waved it 3 times towards the 3 arcs of light. These 3 arcs of light, which were enough to kill a transcendent Dalu, instantly disappeared. Chapter 814. Possessy raised her hand and turned it into a cloud of smoke. The aqua-blue halo in her hand seemed to be able to break any kind of energy attack. However, at this moment, a fist came directly at Possessy. Her expression changed again. Boom! Pure energy couldn't be broken, not to mention that her opponent was right in front of her. At this moment, Possessy realized that Wang Wuli had teleported in front of her so that she could throw a quick punch. Possessy was blasted away again. She fell into the sea and created a several 100-meter wave. Everyone was dumbfounded again. A moment later, the ring-shaped sea started to boil. Countless currents started to condense from Possessy's position. A figure rushed out of the sea with a whoosh. At the same time, the The sea god's projection left Wang Feng's domain. It merged with Possessie's body. In the next moment, an enormous aura rose from Possessie's body. It was an aura that no one could resist. The aqua-blue airflow was like burning flames that swirled around Possessie's body, especially her eyes, which contained a pair of aqua-blue eyes that contained a hint of divinity. Wang Feng looked at her in surprise. Is this the aura of a god? So the sea god's true body could be possessed. Wang Feng vaguely sensed the unique aura emitted from Possessie's body. Although it was faint, it was indeed the aura of a god. God wasn't quite accurate. It was the aura of a demigod. He didn't expect such a big change to happen after being possessed by the sea god's true body. Earlier, he used the flame flag to break Possessie's light shield that was immune to spiritual attacks and sent her flying again. This must have angered Possessie. Whoosh! As if she had teleported, Possessie took a light step in midair. She seemed to be hundreds of meters away from Wang Feng, but she appeared in front of Wang Feng in an instant. The scepter in her hand seemed to have turned into a trident as well. White streams of air emanated from both sides of the trident. The trident seemed to tear the space apart. Poseidon looked like a goddess of war waiting to strike. She locked onto Wang Feng, and the trident seemed to carry the power of the sea as it fell towards Wang Feng. Wang Feng's expression changed. A sense of danger rose in his heart. In the next moment, he didn't have time to defend himself. The trident fell on him without him knowing. Boom! This time, Wang Feng was sent flying. Although he wasn't injured, he felt in intense pain. This Poseidon is indeed not simple. Wang's expression. A strange light flashed in his eyes. There's still more than 10 seconds. The two of them seemed to have turned into two interweaving arcs of light. In a second, they intertwined countless times in the green and white domain. Boom, 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 boom. The sound was louder than the sound of thunder. The entire sea god's mountain seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. The ring-shaped sea around them was shaken by the terrifying sound. Huge waves that were hundreds of meters high surged. Countless sea spirit beasts sank into the sea. They didn't dare to surface to avoid being affected. The 7 holy pillars quickly left the sea god's mountain. Tang San and the others left the platform when the sea god's mountain began to tremble. They ate Oscar's mushroom sausage and flew to a distance to watch the battle. Even with their strength, it was difficult for them to clearly see what kind of battle was taking place in the vast green and white domain. Because it was too fast, they couldn't see it with their eyes or senses. Only Tang San, who had cultivated his purple demon eyes to the vast realm, could see a little more clearly. Among the 7 holy pillars, only the sea dragon Douluo and the sea demon Douluo could see a little more clearly. But they were all silent. In less than 10 seconds, the entire sea god's mountain seemed to have been plowed. Other than the sea god's palace in the center, there was no change. The various plants and forests on it were all in a terrible state. Even the walls around the sea god's palace were filled with holes. Lightning flashed in the sky from time to time. It seemed to be affected by the battle. The green pillar of light in the center of the domain was also getting weaker. Wang Wu is going to lose. Tang San whispered, Senior Possessie's aura is getting stronger. She doesn't seem to have used any energy in the sea. Everyone was silent. That was indeed the case. A few seconds later, a blue light screen burst out from the clouds. Following that, the green and white domain disappeared. The green pillar of light also disappeared in an instant. Wang Feng stood in the void with his body in tatters. There were many injuries on his body. On the other side, Poseidon's noble red robe had a few holes in it, revealing the skin underneath. The crown on her head, which symbolized the high priest, was also crooked. Her neatly combed hair was also messy, but she wasn't injured. Her expression was very calm. I lost, Wang Feng said casually. Senior Possessie's strength is indeed extraordinary. Theoretically speaking, under such circumstances, he had indeed lost. After 25 seconds of the innate 5 directions domain, all kinds of injuries started to appear on his body. Possessi's attacks were like waves in the sea. Each wave was higher than the previous one. There seemed to be no end to it. Especially in this sea, any of Wang Feng's attacks couldn't cause any substantial damage to Possessi. No matter how strong the force was, even if it was hundreds of thousands of kilograms, Possessi could neutralize it. Moreover, Wang Feng's punch wasn't that strong. It couldn't cause any damage to Possessi. She didn't seem to be invincible, but in this sea, she was invincible. Unless Wang Feng's attack was strong enough to shake the sea. The most interesting thing was that Wang Feng's Jade Qilin Tsunami Soul skill couldn't activate the power of this ring-shaped sea. It was very strange. The power of this sea seemed to be completely sealed. After Possessi fused with the sea god's martial soul true body, her aura underwent a subtle change. When the innate Five Directions domain was still around, Wang Feng could still fight Possessi to a draw. But after the domain disappeared, he couldn't. The original Sin's domain wasn't very effective against Possessi, who had such immense spiritual power. Wang Feng's soul power couldn't compare to Possessi's. After all, he was only ranked 79. Hence, the more they fought, the more Wang Feng was at a disadvantage. With Possessi's current state, many of Wang Feng's control-type soul skills were very ineffective. Even if he could control them, he couldn't hurt Possessi. Wang Feng felt that only the soul-slaying spear had a chance of hurting Possessi. Furthermore, it had to be when the innate Five Directions domain was still around. Or, he should have a chance if he used the Panga axe. As for defeating her, he had to reach rank 80 and obtain his 8th soul ring. Chapter 8:15. Thinking of this, Wang Feng couldn't help but think, how strong is Bibi Dan now? Furthermore, Wang Feng faintly felt that Possessi's strength was also somewhat hidden. This was because the Sea God's temple had never made any moves. Wang Feng didn't believe that there was nothing fishy about this temple. You didn't lose. Possessi stared at Wang Feng and said with a smile, "You're the third person who can force me to this step before reaching rank 80. Yes, the first two should be Thousand Dao Lu and Tang Chun. This means that I can barely be compared to a rank 99 peerless Douluo now." Wang Fengxin thought, "This isn't good. I'm only rank 79. Am I invincible in the Douluo world when I reach rank 80? Wang Feng thought about it and felt that it was possible. However, Possessi's words were also very interesting. This step? In other words, Possessi should also have an ability that she didn't use. Wang Feng guessed that it should be related to the Sea God's temple. "You said I didn't lose, so I didn't lose?" Wang Feng snorted. "I did lose. It's not like I don't dare to admit it. But next time, you might not be able to beat me." Wang Feng had benefited a lot from this battle. It was mainly because he experienced the strength that was infinitely close to that of a god. Yes, although Possessi had the aura of a god, she didn't have the strength of a god. She could only be said to be infinitely close to a god. Any attack by a soul master couldn't cause any damage to Possessi. This was just too bad. She didn't use invincible soul skills, but she was always invincible. This was the feeling of a god. Especially in this sea, Wang Feng felt that she was unshakable. Possessi doesn't even have the strength of a true god. If she's a true god, Wang Feng thought about it and felt that gods were still very strong. At least if they really appeared, he wouldn't even be able to escape. At this moment, Possessi replied with a faint smile, "Sorry. Even if it's the next time, I will definitely beat you." Wang Feng. Only then did Wang Feng remember that Possessi was also a woman. Women were all vengeful. No matter how gentle and kind Possessi was, she was only the great consecrated of the Sea God's Island. Wang Feng went silent as he turned around and left on the Netherism flying sword to swiftly leave Divine Sea Mountain as he intended to find a place to cultivate. Possessi looked at Wang Feng's back view and muttered, "What an incredible person." Soon after, Poseidon landed on the ground again. At this time, the 7 holy pillars also rushed over from afar, staring at each other. Tang San and the rest also quickly flew up from the foot of the mountain. Consecrated, the sea dragon Douluo took a step forward and gulped. He lost, but I didn't win either. Poseidon said something very mysterious, and everyone was confused. In fact, by sight she could feel that Wang Wu still had some things that he hadn't taken out. After his tea test, he's teat. Wang, Tang Tang, Island Tang teat. Tang San, you guys stay behind. Possessy pointed at the sea god mountain that was in a mess. 7 saint pillars. The 7 of them still had a lot of questions, but since Possessy had spoken, they didn't dare to disobey. After so many years, this was the first time they saw someone who could fight with the great consecrated to such an extent. It was simply too shocking and curious. The 7 of them quickly cleaned up Sea God Mountain. Possessy looked at Tang San and the others. Perhaps because they had just witnessed such an extraordinary and shocking battle. The 9 of them were still a little excited and had yet to recover from their shock. Just like the attack between the 2 of them just now. Not to mention taking it head-on, the 9 of them would be shattered into pieces if they were even slightly touched by the aftershocks. Even Tang San was no exception, if not for the Sea God Mountain being suppressed by the Sea God Palace. There was also the Sea God's Light to stabilize the defense. In the battle just now, the entire Sea God Mountain would have been broken. A battle of this level could be said to be close to the peak of the Douluo world. It could be imagined how difficult it was to be able to see such a battle. Unfortunately, with their strength, they couldn't see much. Tang San, your next test is to pull out the Sea God Trident, right? Possessy didn't mention the battle just now. Hearing this, Tang San hurriedly nodded. His 7th test was to pull out the Sea God's Trident. Come with me. Possessy glanced at everyone and led the way towards the Sea God Palace that still hadn't changed. The battle just now was so loud, but it still didn't affect this magnificent Sea God Palace. The 9 of them looked at each other and quickly followed. What does Senior Possessy mean? What does he mean by he lost, but I didn't win either? Ma Hongjun scratched his head. Could it be a draw? Definitely not. Because even if they didn't understand, they could feel that Wang Wu was suppressed from the collision of the 2 auras just now. It should be that neither side has revealed their strength. Tang San pondered. After all, it's just a spar, not a real life and death battle. There was a huge difference in the amount of strength they could display. However, I feel that Wang Wu's strength is a little exaggerated. Even if he was suppressed just now, this is the Sea God Mountain, Senior Possessy's home ground. Senior Possessy has a huge advantage here, and in the beginning, Senior Possessy, he was blasted into the ring-shaped sea. It could be said that Possessy was caught off guard. Everyone was shocked, and only then did they remember. The location of the battle was the Sea God Mountain. Possessy did indeed have a natural home ground advantage. But even so, Wang Wu was only suppressed and not defeated. This meant that if they left the Sea God's Island, wouldn't Wang Wu be comparable to Possessy? At this time, everyone followed Possessy into the Sea God Palace. Inside the Sea God Palace, there were only statues on both sides of the main hall, forming a long corridor. Tang San recognized these statues at a glance. They were the statues of many sea spirit beasts in the sea. Among them was the great white demon shark. There were even statues of the mermaid clan, which instantly attracted everyone's attention. These statues are all the sea creatures that once followed Master Sea God. Possessy slowly explained, "Do you know the size of the sea?" Everyone was stunned. The size of the sea? Who knew? This was no longer a problem of Possessy. Countless dangerous areas in the 2 empires were surrounded by the sea. There were countless rivers and lakes on the continents that flowed to the sea. The vastness of the sea was unimaginable. The size of the sea is 4 times that of the continents. Possessy said as he walked. 4 times. Everyone was shocked. Although they already knew that the sea was vast, it was equivalent to the size of 4 continents. It was really exaggerated. Chapter 8:16. And on your continent for countless years, there have been all kinds of battles happening all the time. Possessy continued. You can imagine how many battles there are in the sea that has the area of 4 continents. A long time ago, the sea was far more dangerous than it is now. At that time, there were thousands of races fighting in the sea. Countless lives were lost every day. None of the soul masters on the continent dared to step into the sea. In the process of this battle, A great hero was finally born. He used 1,001 years to conquer one sea tribe after another with his powerful strength and peerless talent, unifying the sea. In the end, he was revered as the sea god by the Sea Clan and created an immortal legend. Hearing this, Tang San and the others were stunned. They looked at the countless statues in the hall and felt relaxed. This hero could only be the sea god. However, wasn't this 1,001 years a little too long? With such a long time, what kind of epic would it be? If Wang Feng was here, he would also be very surprised. 1,001 years? That was too long. In fact, it wasn't long. I heard from my teacher that a titled Dalu can live for 300 years. Tang San thought for a while. But it's not that they can't live for that long. Possessy turned around and smiled. Your teacher might not know this, but every increase in rank for a titled Dalu, other than the change in strength, also increases the lifespan of a titled Dalu. This is because one's lifespan can't be sensed. They can only sense it with their own life, aura. Many titled Dalu don't talk about this. In fact, every time a titled Dalu advances by one rank, they can live for another 100 years. At rank 99, their lifespan is already more than 1,000 years. It's not impossible to live for such a long time. Hearing this, everyone was enlightened. The sea god really conquered the sea in just over 1,000 years. Possessy sighed, but the sea god's talent is not the strongest. 2 years ago, the most talented person I've ever seen was your great-grandfather, Tang Chen. For us titled Dalu, every increase in rank usually takes 100 years. However, your great-grandfather, Tang Chen, only used a few decades to cultivate to level 99. Upon hearing this, Tang San and the other 8 people could not understand. Senior, didn't you use a few decades to reach level 99? Dai Mubai couldn't help but ask. Furthermore, if every rank of titled Dalu is counted in 100 years, wouldn't the titled Dalu on the continent already be a few hundred years old? But they aren't that big. Everyone had the same question in their hearts. In fact, there were very few titled Dalu on the continent who were over 100 years old. Dugabo, whom Tang San knew, was only 80 years old. Possessy chuckled a few times and said, "Child, that's calculated according to normal cultivation." But in reality, who would cultivate normally and endure 100 years of loneliness? Can you? Everyone shook their heads. When you were over level 60, you felt that your cultivation had slowed down, so you went out to sea to find an opportunity to cultivate and become stronger. As titled Dalu, with such powerful abilities, it's naturally impossible for them to cultivate foolishly. Possessy said softly, they will also look for all kinds of opportunities, such as comprehending through battles, using spirit medicine to break through, learning some secrets that are not passed on, and so on. No titled Dalu is simple. Titled Dalu's cultivation was extremely slow, so it was naturally impossible for them to cultivate foolishly and break through one rank in 100 years. It was too slow and unbearable. Hence, after listening to Possessy's explanation, everyone was enlightened. But even so, there are almost no soul masters on the continent who have cultivated to rank 97 and above. This is because no matter how many opportunities they seek, breaking through to rank 98 and rank 99 are two huge thresholds. Possessy said softly, "As for me, it's because I'm indebted to God and receive His grace that I'm able to reach rank 99. Otherwise, I wouldn't have such a high soul power rank now. Back then, I passed the top-notch 8th test and became the high priest of Sea God's Island. Dalu is the same as me. It's a similar 8th test." Possessy led everyone to the front of the hall. It was a statue of the sea god, and it was open air. Above the statue, there was a beam of bright light that shone down, making this statue look extremely sacred. Everyone also understood a little. And your great-grandfather, Possessy, turned to look at Tang San, relied on himself to cultivate to rank 99. It's difficult for him to reach this level just by chance alone. This also requires unparalleled talent. In our era, it's not an exaggeration to say that your great-grandfather's talent is the best on the continent. Tang San was silent. His talent was inseparable from his ancestors' bloodline. But in your era, Possessi looked into the distance. In terms of talent, there might not be anyone who can compare to Wang Wu. His talent, even with my knowledge, is very unbelievable. You might have fought with him before, but you don't know him well enough. However, if he wants to cultivate to rank 99, he will need more than 1,000 years. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. You don't understand, right? Possessi smiled and said, although his strength is weaker than mine, his soul power is not even at rank 80. A soul master who is not even at rank 80 can fight with me. A rank 99 title to law. This means that every level he increases is very huge, but it's also very difficult. For ordinary people, this kind of difficulty might only be able to increase more than 10 levels in their lifetime. It's also this kind of difficulty that creates his strength. His cultivation method is also very strange, and his various abilities are also unimaginable to me. His talent has even surpassed your great-grandfather, Tang Chun. If he's really your opponent, Tang San, you have no hope other than passing the 9 tests of the sea god. Possessi talked about Tang San in a roundabout way. He said all this to put pressure on Tang San. As long as you surpass rank 99, you could defeat him and the enemy you're about to face. Possessi looked at the sky with a deep gaze. Everyone did not understand the meaning of the last sentence. However, Zhu Zhuqing knew that this high priest seemed to have sensed something. Rank 99 is the limit of this world. Possessi gently tapped the ground with the scepter in his hand, and the crystal-like core at the top emitted a gentle light. Under the light, the sea god statue seemed to have been touched by something and quickly moved back. The 7 cylindrical statues beside the sea god statue seemed to symbolize the 7 holy pillars and also moved back quickly. A trident inserted in the core position was revealed in front of everyone. Because it was inserted upside down, only the appearance of a rod was revealed. However, the moment they saw this weapon, Tang San and the others felt as if the world had a little more center. If you want to surpass the limit of rank 99, you have to break the rules of this world. Possessi stared at the trident. But how difficult is it to break the limit of this world? Back then, the sea god used 1,001 years to conquer the sea and used the power of faith of countless sea tribes in the sea to break the limit and become the sea god. Chapter 817. That's right. How difficult was that? If Wang Feng was here, he would know that this was self-proving as a god. Furthermore, he had to rely on the faith of the countless sea clan in the ocean to prove himself as a god. It took more than 1,000 years. If Wang Feng wanted to create his own god's position, it would take an unknown amount of time, and he would not be able to find a way. There is another way to break the rules. That is to inherit the legacy left behind by an existing god. Possessi's expression was somewhat complicated. Lord Sea God knew that the chances of breaking the rules and becoming a god were extremely slim. Therefore, before he left this world, he left behind his god's legacy, so that those with talent in the future would have a chance to become a god. When you become a god and settle the matters in this world, you will also leave behind your god's legacy. Just like that, it will continue to be passed down. Other than the sea god, there are also some places where gods' legacies are left behind on your continent. 2 years ago, as a servant of the sea god, I suddenly sensed an extremely evil god's aura. At this moment, Possessi looked into the distance, and his expression became serious. That is the aura of a god's position. On this continent, someone might have already inherited the legacy left behind by an extremely evil god. 2 years have passed, and I can no longer sense that aura. However, I think that the other party might have stepped into the god's domain and blocked my senses. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. This. The group was so shocked that they could not speak. Countless cold sweat even seeped out of their backs. A few months ago, I sensed the aura of a god's position. Possessi continued, if I am not wrong, this god's aura should be the aura of the angel god that the Thousand Tao sect serves. In other words, someone has also inherited the angel god's position but it is not as strong as the evil aura from before. If we judge based on the God's test, the person who inherited the evil God's position has at least broken through the 8th God's test. He has stepped into the 9th God's domain. Moreover, the other party's strength might not be inferior to mine. Possessee spoke slightly faster. However, the latter might not be able to pass the 7th God's test, if his strength is much higher. Possessee's words. Everyone fell into a dead silence. Needless to say, the two deities' auras were probably from the martial spirit palace. Zhu Zhuqing also understood. No wonder Wang Feng was so serious. God! Tang San was shocked. If that was the case, then wouldn't the current situation of the continent be incomparably dangerous? So, the child, Possessee's eyes were kind as he looked at Tang San and the other 9 people. If you can't pass the last 3 tests, you won't have the slightest chance. As the person chosen by the sea god, you have the potential to pass the 9 tests, but this is far from enough. With less than a month left, you need to pull out Neptune's trident. Otherwise, at this point, Poseidon fell silent. Senior, why do we have to? Tang San suddenly thought of something, and his hair stood on end. Do you mean that they will come to the sea god's island? When the crowd heard this, they sucked in a breath of cold air. You are indeed smart, Possessee sighed. But I don't know. I just have a hunch. So, you need to pass the sea god's 9 tests as soon as possible. Senior, you should know who Wang Wu is, right? At this time, Tang San asked again. He is from the martial spirit palace, and his disciple is also a member of the martial spirit palace. Your premonition must be true, because the girl has left the sea god's island and has even returned to the martial spirit palace. I think the person who inherited the evil deity reported the information about the sea god's island. So, they will definitely come to the sea god's island. But you really don't know? Everyone had the same thought as Tang San. They knew that Hulaina had failed the test. Possessee could sense the deity's aura. How could he not know Wang Wu's identity? If he knew, why would he let Wang Wu grow stronger safely in the sea god's island? However, Possessee smiled and said, Wang Wu is also the person chosen by the sea god. He is not as simple as you think. As for whether I know their identity or not, as the great consecrator of the sea god's island, I don't think I know. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They vaguely understood something. Possessee didn't let Hulaina go on purpose, did he? At the same time? So, Tang San and the others have become stronger? Martial Spirit City, Pontiff's Palace. Bibidon frowned as he looked at his disciple who had changed so much after more than 2 years. After hearing the report, many of the titled Douluo present were a little stunned. Evidently, Hulaina had told them everything that had happened in the past 2 years. From the moment he left Vast Sea City, to the Purple Pearl Island, to the Deep Sea Demon Whale, to the peerless powerhouse who shot out the beam of light, to the black rank trial on the Sea God's Island, and everything that had happened in each of the trials was incomparably clear. Could it be that this Tang San is really fated? The snake spear couldn't help but ask. Even Lord Popetiff's obstruction can't break their minds. Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. The snake spear Douluo wasn't the only one. Even the other Douluo felt the same. That was the truth, destined. Bibidon's eyes were calm. There's no such thing as destined in this world. Without great perseverance, Tang San and the others wouldn't have achieved so much. Hulaina nodded. However, Popetiff has also helped us improve a lot. Hulaina pursed her lips and said, Evil Moon, Yin, and I are already over rank 80. We even obtained a God-given soul ring. Oh yes, I didn't see Wang Feng on the island. Maybe he didn't go to the Sea God's Island. Wang Feng was now the #1 enemy of the Pontiff's Palace. He didn't go? Bibidon frowned and said, No, he went. He must have gone. He might have even gone earlier. That's why you didn't notice. I can only say that he's too good at disguising himself. But I've been to all 7 cities on the Sea God's Island. I didn't see Wang Feng. I've asked around. Hulaina thought for a moment before replying, Apart from us, no one else has come to the Sea God's Island to take the test. In the past 2 years, Hulaina had explored the entire Sea God's Island. She had visited all the places that she was supposed to visit. "There's one place you definitely haven't been," Bibidon said. "It's the Sea God's Palace on the Sea God's Mountain. He might have been on the island, but he didn't take the test. It's not recorded. There are many possibilities, but he's definitely on the Sea God's Island." Hulaina was stunned. She had never been there. At this moment, a cold voice sounded from outside the door. "Why are you thinking so much? He didn't go to the Sea God's Island. Let's go there directly." "Your Highness, it's time to move. P.S. All channels are limited today." Cough, cough. That's why there's only 5 updates. It's only going to explode tomorrow. I'm still asking for monthly votes. Chapter 8:18. A cold voice resounded in the hall. 2 shadows extended from outside the door and landed on everyone. They were Thousand Dao Flo and Qianren Xue. Hulaina looked at the 2 of them, but her gaze immediately landed on Qianren Xue. There was no other reason. That dazzling light made it hard for people not to notice her. At this moment, Qianren Xue looked cold and solemn. His golden eyes flowed with holy and flawless cloud light, and his entire body seemed to be covered in a layer of golden light. He held a golden sword in his hand, which was spitting out blazing flames. The temperature in the hall rose rapidly as the golden flames burned. Hulaina could feel a wave of heat. What shocked Hulaina the most was the aura on Qianren Xue's body. This young master of the martial spirit hall, who had a special relationship with the Pope, seemed to have changed a lot in the past 2 years. On the other hand, Thousand Dao Flo, who was beside her, did not seem outstanding and was extremely quiet. Title Douluo. Hulaina sensed it for a moment and was slightly surprised. Qianren Xue was already a titled Douluo. Many titled Douluo in the hall also felt the aura on Qianren Xue's body. Unparalleled aura. The martial spirit hall had another titled Douluo, and she did not seem to be an ordinary titled Douluo. Bibidon looked at Qianren Xue and smiled. Then he looked at Thousand Dao Flo. Thousand Dao Flo nodded slightly, as if replying, "It's time to set off. It's been almost 3 years." Bibidon stood up and turned around. He looked into the distance at the Pope's palace. His golden white robe seemed to be dyed with a layer of golden light that was even more dazzling. "According to the original plan, we will leave 10 titled Doa to guard Martial Spirit City and supervise the daily affairs of the Martial Spirit Alliance," Bibidon said slowly. "The other cities will send at least 1 red bishop who is rank 60 and above to the port. Prepare the ships that the Martial Spirit Hall has purchased over the past 2 years. The Great Consecrator and I will lead them to Sea God's Island. We'll depart in a month's time and head to Sea God's Island. Remember to let all the red-robed bishops travel light and make arrangements for their respective martial spirit subhalls, and report to the headquarters." Many titled Dawn nodded before quickly leaving the hall to make preparations. With the current strength of the Martial Soul Alliance, this order alone was enough to gather at least 6,000 mid-tier and high-tier soul cultivators. There were at least 10 titled Douluo. This lineup could be considered to be superb. They could sweep away any power on the continent. If they really started a war, the 2 empires wouldn't be able to stop it. Moreover, Bibidon did not deploy the Pontifical Knights, also known as the Knights Templar. The members of the Temple Knights were all soul masters above rank 60. They guarded Martial Spirit City, the headquarters of the Martial Spirit Alliance. In addition, the Martial Soul Branch Hall also had a branch of the Martial Soul Branch Hall's Knight Division, which was responsible for maintaining order in the world of Soul Masters. Of course, Bibidon would not turn out in full force. Currently, the Martial Soul Alliance was slowly nibbling away at the 2 empires. The remaining sects would take at most 2 years. They wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Even if they could hold on, it would take a lot of effort. When that time came, the Martial Soul Alliance would be able to conquer the entire continent effortlessly. At such a crucial time, Bibidon had to ensure the safety of its headquarters. In fact, in Hulaina's opinion, this number of Soul Masters was more than twice that of Sea God's Island. More than 10 titled Douluo were not weaker than the 7 holy pillars. In addition, there was her teacher, the great consecrator, enchantment, who Laina couldn't see through, and Pope Tiff, who was inside Sea God's Island. Sea God's Island couldn't possibly protect Wang Feng and Tang San. Even if Sea God's Island wasn't destroyed, it would at least be greatly damaged. The second consecrator, the golden alligator Dalu, was a rank 98 titled Dalu. He was second only to the 3 exceptional Douluo in the entire continent. Naturally, he was sent to oversee Martial Spirit City's headquarters. Even 2 rank 97 titled Dalu wouldn't be able to defeat him. Why do we have to wait for a month? After waiting for the titled Dalu to leave, Qianren said coldly, "We've prepared for so long before the Holy Lady returned. There's no need to wait at all. Every day we wait, the people from Sea God's Island will have a higher chance of discovering the Holy Lady's identity. Setting off now is the best choice. Otherwise, if the people from Sea God's Island find out, we'll be in even more trouble." Hearing this, Hulaina nodded. Pope Tiff was still on the island. If the people from Sea God's Island confirmed her identity, or if Tang San and the others found out that she had left, they would know that the Martial Spirit Palace would attack Sea God's Island. Possessi would then be informed. Sea God's Island would definitely be fully prepared. It was even very likely that Pope Tiff, Evil Moon, and Yan's lives would be in danger. This was what Hulaina was most worried about. Therefore, Hulaina agreed that they should set off now. She couldn't wait to leave. Bibidon smiled but didn't say anything. Qian Dao Lu also laughed. If one were to say that he was anxious to prepare, Bibidong had already started preparing half a year ago. No one wanted to set off for Sea God's Island more than she did, but she couldn't show that she was in a hurry. Qianren didn't know why they were laughing. He just kept a cold face. A month's time is already very fast. The Martial Spirit Alliance today is not like the Martial Spirit Palace of the past. Even if we're prepared, we can't be too hasty. The 2 empires will notice that something is wrong. Other than that, Bibidon said slowly, compared to the original plan, we've already set off 3 months earlier. Moreover, at this point, Bibidong paused for a moment and fell silent. I don't know what you want to do, but the later we go, the more danger Pope Tiff will be in on Sea God's Island. Qianren tone was strange. Grandfather told me about the strength of the Sea God Douluo Possessi. Do you think Pope Tiff Wang Wu can survive Possessi? If we're late, he'll be gone. Hearing this, Bibidon frowned slightly and looked at Qianren. She was in such a hurry to go to Sea God's Island. It seemed like Xiao Shui had feelings for Pope Tiff Wang Wu. Thinking about it, Wang Wu had helped Xiao Shui escape from Heaven Do Imperial City. It was normal for them to have feelings for each other along the way. In addition, they separated right after they had feelings for each other. She had worked so hard for the past 2 years, and with the help of him and Qianren, she had already passed the 8th test. She was naturally more anxious to go to Sea God's Island. Thinking of this, he looked at Qianren, who had a cold expression and a strange tone. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Nothing will happen to him. Bibidon's calm voice echoed in the hall. Don't worry. Other than me, no one can hurt him. Qianren was silent. She knew that Bibidon had already made sufficient preparations half a year ago. End of chapter. Chapter 819. Sea God's Island, Furious Waves. Wang Feng was still sitting cross-legged on the heavy silver pillar. This place was the most suitable place for cultivation. Every day, he could hear the majestic and shocking sounds of the waves crashing. It also allowed Wang Feng to have a better understanding of the word tremor. It had been more than a month since the battle with Possessi. Wang Feng had stabilized at level 79 and was climbing towards level 80. However, it was probably impossible to reach level 80 in a short time. It was too difficult. Really, this level was fatal. With Wang Feng's own cultivation speed, it would take him 4 to 5 months no matter how fast he was. However, he probably didn't have that much time now. By the way, I wonder if there are any heavenly treasures on this Sea God's Island. Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. Using the cauldron of heaven and earth, Wang Feng could refine all kinds of heavenly treasures into the purest soul crystals. Through the soul crystals, Wang Feng was confident that he could reach level 80 in a short time. Logically speaking, a place like the Sea God's Island should have heavenly treasures. At the very least, there should be some in the sea. Thinking of this, Wang Feng planned to discuss with Possessee to see if there were any heavenly treasures. If he could reach level 80, then the 8th form of the Chaos Green Lotus would give Wang Feng more confidence in facing BB Dawn. Thinking of this, Wang Feng walked towards the Sea God's Mountain. However, as soon as he arrived at the Sea God's Mountain, Wang Feng found that Tang San and the others were standing outside the Sea God's Palace. However, Tang San didn't know. Wang Fengxian's heart skipped a beat. He didn't enter the Sea God's Palace immediately. At this moment, a golden pillar of light suddenly rose from the Sea God's Palace. The pillar of light rushed out of the Sea God's Palace and then quickly changed like clouds and mist, forming a golden figure. Wang Feng looked up at this figure. It looked like the Sea God. However, Wang Feng was quite familiar with the Sea God. It shouldn't be the Sea God. The next moment, the entire Sea God's island seemed to tremble. Wang Feng could vaguely sense a strange power surging toward the center from all directions. It was visible to the naked eye. Countless specks of golden light surged towards the Sea God's island from all directions, and even further away. These golden specks of light hovered in the air, looking like a river of stars, extremely dazzling. The golden figure in the center was in the middle of the galaxy, and the golden light gathered at the center of the figure. Subsequently, the golden figure gradually became clearer. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes. The first thing that appeared was the divine and heroic armor. Then, the person inside slowly appeared. It was Tang San. These golden specks of light seemed to be a very special energy. Wang Feng's palm gently sucked these golden specks of light into his body, but he found that he could not convert them into soul power. What kind of energy is this? Wang Feng looked at the pure golden light in his palm. It was a very special energy. It was pure and flawless, as if it contained a will. Is it the power of faith? Wang Feng pondered for a few seconds and watched the golden energy in the sky gradually merge into the golden figure, making Tang San's appearance a little clearer. It was energy that could not be absorbed. Only the power of faith could do that. This was because this was a power that originated from the condensation of one's soul and spirit. It belonged to the person who was worshipped, the Sea God. It seems that after pulling out the Sea God's trident, he has truly stepped into the realm of God. But Little Three's soul power level is still too low. Wang Feng shook his head. If becoming a god relied on the power of faith, it was really not easy to become a god. Perhaps this was the rule of becoming a god in the Douluo world. But thinking about it, there were many gods. It was impossible for all of them to become a god by relying on the power of faith, right? In any case, looking at the thousands of light specks of faith flying into the golden figure, Wang Feng was still a little curious. Obviously, this would only happen if one pulled out the Sea God's trident, passed the 7th test, and truly became the successor of the Sea God. At this time, the power of faith gathered on Tang San. At this time, Wang Feng estimated that if he wanted to kill Tang San, he would have to bear the karma of countless creatures in the sea. TSK, TSK, TSK. Except for gods, even a titled Dalu would find it difficult to bear this kind of karma. Inheriting a deity's position would allow one to obtain the power of faith. This method of becoming a god was, in comparison, much simpler. After a while, as the golden figure became more and more solid, the light specks began to decrease. Then the figure disappeared, and everything returned to calm. After waiting for a while, Wang Feng was surprised to see Possessee come out with Tang San, who was holding the Sea God's trident. However, Tang San looked extremely weak. His whole body was covered with blood scabs, and Xiao was supporting him by the side. Seeing Tang San come out, the rest of the people went up to greet him. Wang Feng also saw the Sea God's trident. Legend had it that it weighed more than 100,000 kilograms. But Wang Feng felt that it should not be that simple. This thing was a divine artifact. Without the approval of the Sea God, even if one could move something more than 100,000 kilograms, it was impossible to pick up the Sea God's trident. In the center of the sea god's trident, Wang Feng saw a triangular core that was still shining. This core should be the sea god's heart, which was the vast sea universe cover. Only those who were recognized by the sea god could use it. It was also a special divine artifact. Without this object, Wang Feng estimated that Tang San would not be able to pull it out if it flew into the groove of the sea god's trident. Looking at the sea god's trident, Wang Fengxin moved in his heart. He did not know if he could wield it. He felt that it was not possible. The weight was only one thing. He was not the heir of the sea god and had not been recognized by the sea god's trident. It should be difficult for him to wield it. It was like the hammer of Thor in the Marvel comics. Only Thor could wield it with a divine spell cast on it. A group of people gathered in front of Tang San and seemed to be asking about the situation just now. Wang Feng thought for a moment and walked over. This thing weighs 108,000 kilograms. It may not be heavy compared to those heavy silver pillars, but even I can't lift it easily. Possessy looked at the trident with a hint of relief in his eyes. The divine artifact had a spirit. It had chosen Tang San as its master, which meant that the sea would soon have a master. 108,000 kilograms. Tang San was shocked. I feel that it's only about 100 kilograms now. It's not heavy. How can it be? Let me try. Dai Mubai was the strongest. He walked over and gently held the sea god's trident. In the next moment, he felt a repulsive force coming from it. Huh! Dai Mubai's martial soul was fully activated. Several soul rings lit up. His face was flushed, and countless veins appeared on his neck. The skin on his hands holding the trident was about to peel off, but the sea god's trident did not move at all. Boss Dai, don't waste your energy. Senior Possessy can't lift it easily. It's useless even if there are 10 of you. Oscar smiled and said, this is a divine artifact. He also wants a safe face. How can he let you lift it so easily? End of chapter. Chapter 820. Dai Mubai retracted his hand and rubbed it. It's so scary. In the hands of Xiao San, it's only 100 kilograms, but when he swings it out, it's more than 100,000 kilograms. Even a titled Dalu can't withstand it. Tang San held the divine weapon in his hand and felt a strange feeling in his heart. Smiling, Tang San really wanted to say something, but he saw Wang Wu walk over. Is this thing really 108,000 kilograms? The other party's voice was still so calm. You want to try? Possessy chuckled. Wang Wu, you can wield the heavy silver pillar, but it's impossible for you to wield this thing. She passed the top-notch 8th exam, and she was the high priestess of the Sea God Island. She had part of the Sea God's power, so she could barely wield the Sea God's trident. Although Wang Wu was also chosen by the Sea God, he hadn't passed the exam yet. He wasn't recognized by the Sea God, so it was naturally impossible for him to wield this thing. Dai Mubai passed the 6th black exam. Although he was recognized by the Sea God, his power was still not enough. I have this idea. Wang Feng's eyes flashed. Seeing this, Tang San thought for a while and gently stabbed the Sea God's trident into the ground. The ground seemed to tremble. Wang Feng walked over and looked at the blue gold trident. The divine weapon of this world might not be inferior to the god-slaying spear in its martial soul form. It also carried the faith of countless sea creatures. Wang Feng took a deep breath and looked at this divine weapon. Back in the Rakshasa secret realm, the Rakshasa demon scythe should be extremely heavy. In order to pull out the Rakshasa demon scythe, one had to withstand the evil aura contained in it, which led to the special situation of the BB Dawn at that time. The next moment, when Wang Feng's hands held the Sea God's trident, the Sea God mountain suddenly trembled. A majestic aura condensed from Wang Feng's body and rushed out, forming a swirling airflow. The strong wind formed by the airflow blew around. A dark light flashed in Wang Feng's eyes. He felt that this trident was filled with a huge resistance. This resistance made it difficult for Wang Feng to pick it up. It was the power of faith of the many living beings in the sea, and it also contained a portion of the power of the gods. Not to mention that he could wield a heavy silver pillar that weighed 500,000 kilograms. Even if he could wield 1,000,000 kilograms, it would still be useless. But you really can't lift it? Wang Feng murmured. If they couldn't, it meant that humans would never be able to defeat God. In the future, he would be a man who would have to fight a god at level 90. How could he not pick it up? You can't do it anymore. Ma Hongjun and the others were also amused. Wang Wu's identity aside, although Senior Possessee said that he was not simple. However, in their hearts, they still considered the other party as an enemy. Adding on the fact that the Martial Spirit Palace was plotting against the Sea God's Island, their attitude naturally wouldn't change. Even Senior Possessee could barely pick it up. It seems like he hasn't passed the Sea God's test yet, right? Dai Mubai shook his head. What is his second test? To think that he still hasn't passed. They didn't know about this either. Wang Wu only took a few months to pass the first 3 tests. However, it had been more than a year, and he still hadn't passed the second test. This was a bit unscientific. Tang San watched with a smile. At first, he didn't understand how heavy this thing was. Even Senior Possessee could barely lift it. After listening to the explanation, Tang San finally understood what kind of power was contained in the Sea God's trident. Therefore, he wasn't worried that Wang Wu would be able to lift the Sea God's trident. The group of people laughed, looking like they were watching a show. Their faces were full of smiles. Only Zhu Zhuqing had a trace of anticipation in her eyes. At this moment, as the power in Wang Feng's hands became stronger and stronger, the airflow around his body seemed to form a hurricane, looking a bit violent. Looking at this scene, Possessee still had a smile on his face. If Wang Wu passed the second test, then he should be able to pick it up. After all, he had passed the second test of the Sea God and received the approval of the Sea God. But now it was far from possible. Wang Wu, I think you'd better not waste your energy. Ning Rongrong pouted and said, this is a divine weapon. How can a mere soul master like you be able to pick it up? Senior Possessee said that you're the most talented man in this era, but I don't believe it. If Wang Feng is here, his talent is the strongest. Hey, why are you still using your energy? What a stubborn and proud man. If you can pick up this Sea God's trident, I, Ning Rongrong, will take your surname from now on, okay? With that, Ning Rongrong put her hands on her waist and looked at Wang Wu with a smile. Everyone, however, the next moment, everyone didn't feel it. Only Wang Feng felt a pure energy flowing out of his heart. Wang Feng was startled. It was the energy of the meteoric tear. The energy of the meteoric tear actually surged out at this time. What surprised Wang Feng even more was that after this energy flowed out, the irresistible force inside the Sea God's trident actually loosened a little. It was very small, only a few centimeters, but it was enough. Rumble. It was as if the entire Sea God mountain was trembling, and then everyone saw an extremely incredible scene. The Sea God's trident that Tang San inserted horizontally into the ground seemed to have loosened, and it was actually pulled out a little. It was about a distance of less than 10 centimeters. When the energy of the meteoric tear flowed back, Wang Feng also stopped pulling it out. Silence. Strange. Silence. Shock. The 10 people, including Possessee, opened their mouths slightly, as if they were dumbfounded by this scene. Although it was only less than 10 centimeters long, it was indeed lifted. This was too incredible. The 10 people were a little confused. How is this possible? Possessee murmured. Impossible. The Sea God's trident condenses the faith of countless creatures in the sea. Without the approval of the Sea God, even a level 99 titled, can't bear it, unless he is a god. But Wang Wu was not a god. Possessee couldn't explain what was happening in front of her. Even she was like this. Tang San and the others were even more stunned. The most stunned was Ning Rongrong. The smile on her face was completely frozen on the spot. Is it an illusion? Ma Hongjun rubbed his eyes. Didn't they say that only with the approval of the Sea God can one pick it up? Although his words were what most people were thinking, no one could answer him. Rongrong, do you really want your surname to be Wang? Bai Qinxiang pulled Ning Rongrong's sleeve. Ning Rongrong suddenly giggled. So what if I pick it up? What's wrong with my surname being Wang? In the future, when I marry Wang Feng, there's no problem with me taking his surname. In the past, there were women who followed their husbands' surnames. Can't there be a cultural renaissance? Everyone, this little elf. Wang Feng glanced at Ning Rongrong. How could he not know what this silly girl was thinking? It was just that the energy that flowed out of the heart just now was a little strange, like the energy of the meteoric tear. But it was also a little different. End of chapter. Chapter 821. It could actually weaken the resistance of the sea god's trident. Wang Feng knew that the resistance came from the faith of the many lives in the sea. Even with his current strength, it was impossible for him to move it even if he was in his best state. Unless he reached rank 90 and his strength increased by another level, he would be able to lift the sea god's trident with the help of the chaotic green lotus martial soul true body. But it was really impossible now. Wang Feng was a little surprised when he picked up 10 centimeters just now. As expected, the meteoric tear would have different effects depending on the strength of the user. I have something to talk to you about. After letting go of the sea god's trident, Wang Feng walked towards Possessi. Possessi was slightly stunned. He nodded at Tang San and the others. Tang San and the others didn't stay and left directly. What's the matter? Possessi asked. Wang Feng asked if there were any heaven and earth treasures or various spiritual herbs on the sea god's island. You want to use those spiritual herbs to improve your cultivation? Possessi was a little surprised. There are many on the spiritual herb island, but most of them are harmful to soul masters. If you want to use them, it will cause great danger to yourself. I have a few here, but if you use these heaven and earth treasures, even if your soul power will increase in a short time, it will damage your foundation and destroy your future limit. I don't recommend you to use these. That was the reason. In addition to countless lives in the sea, there must be all kinds of rare treasures. Sure enough, there were still some. It's okay. Wang Feng shook his head and said, just give them to me. As an exchange, you can say whatever you want. Hearing this, Possessi thought for a while and said, okay. As a condition, do you still remember that demon soul great white shark? Although I don't know how you trained those 3 soul beasts to become 100,000-year soul beasts, there are 2 or 3 80,000-year soul beasts in the demon soul great white shark group. If you can, what he meant was you have to train these 3 demon soul great white sharks to become 100,000-year soul beasts for me. Wang Feng was stunned and immediately laughed. Oh, are you treating me as a soul beast trainer? One by one. No problem. Let them come to the furious waves' desolate territory. Wang Feng felt that this request was worth it. It could also be considered an equivalent exchange. After all, it was not difficult for Wang Feng to train 2 or 3 great white demon soul sharks of 80 to 90,000 years to 100,000 years. If it was the kind that was 40 to 50,000 years old, it might take a longer period of time. However, this kind of 80 to 90,000 years old, which was only a step away from 100,000 years, was very easy and fast. Then Poseidon took out an immortal herb that looked like an icy blue coral from the sea god palace. Deep sea dragoning Shan. Possessi carefully enveloped the palm-sized immortal herb with his soul power. It looked like a coral, but it looked like a baby dragon. It only grew at a depth of 6,000 meters. It was an immortal herb that had lived in the depths of the ring-shaped sea for tens of thousands of years. This thing contains an extremely strong dragon-type poison. Legend has it that this thing was once the descendant of a giant dragon that had a cultivation base of hundreds of thousands of years. However, it was abandoned after it was born because of its deformed appearance. It fell to the bottom of the sea and was crushed into powder and blood by the pressure of the sea. This blood and powder nourished an ordinary coral, and it slowly formed into this appearance. Possessi shook his head and said, it contains an extremely evil aura of resentment. If an ordinary soul master were to consume it, they would lose their mind and become an idiot. At the same time, it also contains an extremely strong poison. Even poison-type soul masters who are immune to poison can't resist its toxicity. However, this Long Ying Shan contains a rich amount of dragon essence energy. Soul masters can absorb it to improve their physical quality and soul power. His explanation was very detailed. Wang Feng looked at the palm-sized deep-sea dragoning Shan. He could vaguely hear a sad cry. If it were to cultivate for another 10,000 years, it would probably become a spirit, right? Wang Fengxin thought to himself. After thinking about it, Wang Feng was rather interested in Possessie's story. What kind of soul beast was that giant dragon with a cultivation base of hundreds of thousands of years? Possessie was stunned, but he still answered. It was an extremely evil soul beast, the dark Nirvana demon dragon. However, these are all legends. Even the sea god has never seen it. I only heard that this dark Nirvana demon dragon appeared in the great star Douluo forest on your continent. This dragon is extremely lascivious, and it planted many soul beasts. The legend of this long Shan originated from this. Wang Feng nodded slightly and accepted this long Shan. Although this long Shan had many stories, it was still slightly inferior to the immortal herbs in the ice and fire Yin-Yang eyes or the heaven and earth treasures in the Four Absolutes myriad Elephant Valley. The main reason was that there were too many negative effects. Even with Possessie's cultivation base, he had to carefully wrap it with his soul power. This was because even if the smell of this long Shan leaked out, it would cause uncontrollable damage. Seeing Wang Wu leave just like that, Possessie opened his mouth and wanted to stop him. However, after thinking about it, he gave up. Since the other party was so confident, he must have a way to consume it. Besides, this trade wasn't considered a loss. A chicken rib-like immortal herb in exchange for 200,000 to 300,000 year soul beasts. It was a huge profit. After Wang Feng returned to the Furious Wave's desperate situation, he quickly used the cauldron of heaven and earth to refine it into sparkling and translucent soul crystals. A total of 3 soul crystals were refined. Wang Feng estimated that after absorbing these 3 soul crystals, he should be able to reach rank 80 in half a month. However, because it had become a soul crystal, the positive and negative effects of the long Shan had all disappeared. It had only become the purest soul crystal. It was already extremely fast to be able to increase 1 level in half a month. Otherwise, if he just cultivated like this, it would take at least half a year before he could break through. Unfortunately, this kind of immortal herb was analyzed very little. However, the soul crystal was made up of the purest energy. Absorbing it wouldn't have any negative effects on one's cultivation. On the contrary, it would have a positive effect. Because the energy was too pure, it was extremely helpful for the improvement of the quality of one's soul power. During the days when Wang Feng was absorbing the soul crystals, huge ships shuttled through the clouds and mist, heading towards the sea god's island at a rapid speed. From the looks of it, these ships looked like merchant ships more than 10 days later. At the port of the sea god's island, Tang San and the others were about to leave the sea god's island and return to the mainland. Although they couldn't leave the sea god's island after passing the test, Tang San, as the successor of the sea god, was naturally not restricted by this rule. He could come and go as he pleased. The reason Tang San came here was because he wanted to summon Whitey and let the great white devil soul shark take them away. Originally, they wanted to stay because Possessie said that the person who had inherited the evil god, which was the martial spirit palace, was very likely to attack the sea god's island. In this regard, Tang San, as the successor of the sea god, naturally couldn't sit back and do nothing. He planned to stay and fight against the martial spirit palace together. However, Possessie asked Tang San to leave the sea god's island in advance because the mainland might be more dangerous at this time. Besides, the sea god's island was not afraid of the martial spirit palace at all. After all, the sea god's island had been attacked before. So what? Wasn't it still beaten back? End of this chapter. Chapter 822. And it was a crushing defeat. On this sea god's island, no one could defeat Possessie. Even the person who inherited the evil god might not be able to do so. There were also the 7 saint pillars and more than 3,000 sea soul masters. After weighing the pros and cons, Tang San and the others decided to return to the mainland to see how the situation was. Woo woo woo. Tang Sen took out a conch and blew it. This was given to him by Little White. Little White said that as long as he blew it, Little White would come. However, after blowing it for a while, he did not see Little White. Seeing this, the 9 of them looked at each other and had a bad premonition. At the same time, look, Ning Rong Rong suddenly pointed to the front. Why are there so many large merchant ships? I remember that the communication between the Sea God's Island and the outside world are all small ships used for simple material exchanges. Zhu Qing, go to the Sea God's Mountain and report to Senior Possessee. Immediately, Tang Sen shouted, Chun Xiang, go to the 7 Saint Pillars and tell them, the people from the Martial Spirit Palace are here. As soon as he finished speaking, the sea in front of them was overturned and a loud bang was heard. Countless sea soul beasts were suddenly overturned. With Tang San's eyesight, he could even see several great white demon sharks among them. Seeing this, Tang San's heart trembled violently. Sure enough, Hulaina must have gone back to report this matter. I didn't expect them to come so quickly. The Martial Spirit Palace really dared to come. The moment Tang Sen opened his mouth, Zhu Qing and Bai Chunxiang had already turned into a beam of light and disappeared from where they stood. We may not be able to leave. Tang San's face was very serious. Looking at the situation, there should be a lot of people from the Martial Spirit Palace. I've calculated that each ship of this type can carry more than 300 people. Ning Rong Rong said, a conservative estimate is at least 6,000 people, and they should all be soul masters. I just don't know what level of title Douluo there are. But even if Qian Lu comes, he can't defeat Senior Possessee. On the Sea God's Island, even a yellow-robed soul master could compare to a soul emperor. A purple-clothed sea soul master would have no problem fighting 1 against 2. Unless these 6,000 people are all elites of the Martial Spirit Palace, and all of them are soul masters above rank 60. There were tens of thousands of soul masters in the Martial Spirit Hall, but there shouldn't be many high-level soul masters. At this moment, a figure suddenly flew over from the distant horizon. It was a dazzling golden figure. Behind her were 6 pairs of exquisite and majestic white wings, emitting a dazzling light. Her entire body was faintly burning with a scorching golden flame. She was like a goddess of war who had walked out of the sun, dazzling and dazzling. Her beautiful face exuded a cold aura, and her pair of golden eyes were filled with anxiety. It's Qianren Shua. Tang San's pupils shrank. This is the aura of a title Doa. Senior Possessee said that the person who inherited the angel god should be her. The other party's aura was too obvious. But why did the other party come here immediately? At this moment, Qianren Shua seemed to have seen the 7 people. The 7 people's hearts tightened, and they immediately prepared for battle. However, Qianren Shua flew several meters in the air and looked at them for a long time. She didn't seem to see the target, and then the first sentence she said stunned them. Where is Wang Feng? Everyone. Why is she looking for Brother Feng? The 7 people were a little confused. Only Ning Rong Rong had a strange expression. When did Qianren Shua know Wang Feng? Of course, they didn't know that Qianren Shua had known Wang Feng for a long time. If they wanted to trace back, it would be when they were 6 years old. I don't know. Tang San calmly said, why didn't the Martial Spirit Palace stay on the continent and come to the ocean's sacred island instead? Are you planning to leave with your tail between your legs like last time? Qianren Shua shook his head and looked at the 7 people. Tang San, I spared your life last time. I didn't expect you to be so lucky. You didn't get swallowed by the deep-sea monster whale. Instead, you came to the Sea God's Island and became the heir of the Sea God. Do you also have the aura of a divine artifact? The divine artifact was, of course, the Sea God's trident. Tang San's heart sank. Unfortunately, you're too weak. You should have only passed the 7th test, right? Qianren Shua was extremely intelligent. It was obvious that she had guessed Tang San's current progress based on the information that Hulaina had given her. I'm too lazy to deal with you now. Qianren Shua's expression turned cold. His beautiful face was full of holiness and coldness, as if he had no feelings. Tell me where Wang Feng is, and I'll pretend that I didn't see you. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy." After saying that, Qianrenchue's 9 soul rings suddenly lit up. A huge fluctuation of soul power formed a terrifying soul power pressure. The air was frozen, and even the sea water at the port was condensed. Rank 99, Tang San was stunned. He couldn't imagine the pressure brought by such a soul power fluctuation. More than 3 years ago, in the Heaven-Do Imperial Palace, Qianrenchue's strength was only a little over rank 80. 3 years, and he had reached rank 99? Was the inheritance of a heavenly god so powerful? In just 3 years, Qianrenchue had advanced more than 10 levels. Moreover, this was level 99. What was more terrifying was the aura on Qianrenchue's body. A purple light flowed out of the purple demon eyes. Tang San vaguely saw the 5 soul bones on Qianrenchue's body. Each of them exuded an aura that was incomparably compatible with the 6-winged angel Wuhan. What did rank 99 mean? Qianrenchue must have passed the 7th test, or even the 8th test. She only needed one more test to become a god. Tang San couldn't imagine it. They had advanced very quickly, but Qianrenchue didn't seem to be slow. If they waited for another 1 or 2 years, they might really face a Qianrenchue who had become a god. But now, even if the other party had just reached rank 99, the possibility of the 7 of them joining forces to defeat her was very, very low. "Why are you looking for Wang Feng?" Ning Rongrong stood out and snorted. "Wang Feng isn't on Sea God's Island at all. Didn't your holy lady tell you clearly?" What a joke. It seems that your martial spirit palace is really afraid of Wang Feng. Qianrenchue looked at Ning Rongrong and frowned. Are these people lying? Or is Wang Feng really not on Sea God's Island? Or is it that Wang Feng disguised himself and didn't even tell them? But shouldn't be. Impossible. Wang Feng must be on Sea God's Island. Qianrenchue narrowed his eyes. His cold eyes were like sharp blades, emitting waves of cold light. This woman is a little annoying. The next moment, a golden giant sword burning with golden flames suddenly appeared in Qianrenchue's hand. 9 soul rings on his body flickered, 7 black and 2 red. Immediately after, Qianrenchue casually slashed towards Ning Rongrong. The golden flame sword mark that was more than 10 meters long seemed to burn the air and fell down with the momentum of splitting the air. End of this chapter. Chapter 823. Ning Rongrong's face turned pale, and she hurriedly retreated. This Qianrenchue from the Martial Soul Hall. Why did he attack without saying anything? Tang San stood out immediately. His trident had already appeared in his hand, and his blue-silver Emperor domain was instantly released. Countless blue-silver grass formed an iron wall in front of him. Dai Mubai didn't even have time to use his martial soul possession. He directly used his 6th soul skill, White Tiger Annihilation, his strongest single-target attack. A white energy light in the shape of the word kill blasted towards the golden sword scar. At the same time, Ma Hongjun, who had a tacit understanding with him, also used the Phoenix Cloud Piercing Strike, his strongest single-target soul skill at the moment. Like a phoenix soaring into the sky, a pillar of fire diagonally pierced through the clouds and blasted towards the golden flame sword scar. The moment the 2 attacks came into contact with the golden sword scar, an incomparably blazing air current exploded. However, the golden flame sword scar only slowed down slightly and showed no signs of weakening at all. Only Tang San growled. The 8 spider spears appeared on his back, and the golden trident in his hand glowed with white light. The ocean-like blue light made people feel extremely comfortable. At the same time, his 8th soul ring suddenly flickered, and a dark mirror suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Tang San's 8th soul skill, Blue-Silver Evil Realms Annihilation. It could condense a special mirror for defense. The moment the golden flame sword scar landed on the mirror, it let out a sharp, piercing sound. Immediately after, the mirror shattered and quickly burned into ashes in the golden flames. But after this attack, the golden flame sword scar weakened a lot. Tang San growled and swung his sea god's trident towards the golden sword scar. Although Ning Rongrong was frightened, she immediately gave her defense and amplification, turning into two rays of light that landed on Tang San's body. However, Tang San still underestimated the power of Qian Rinchue's casual attack, because the sword in his opponent's hand was obviously a divine weapon. As a divine weapon, it was naturally not simple. Whether it was the Time Angel's holy sword or the sea god's trident, they were all divine weapons of the same level. But the key was that the person who used it was different. Although the Qian Rinchue had just reached level 99, it was not something that Tang San could compare to. Tang San's expression changed, and a little blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. The golden flame sword mark exploded. Although it was blocked by Neptune's trident, the impact of the explosion injured Tang San in an instant. If he hadn't passed the 7th test, he would have been done for. The strength of this Qian Rinchue is so terrifying. Was this the strength needed to pass the 8th test? Tang San knew the content of the 8th test. It was also because of the content of the 8th test that Tang San agreed to Possessie's suggestion and return to the mainland. He planned to cultivate while observing the situation. At the same time, he could also make a trip to the ice-fire Yin-Yang well to get some spiritual herbs to replenish his energy. Qian Rinchue, who had passed the 8th test, was terrifyingly powerful. Tang San kept retreating, his feet leaving a trail on the ground. His face was slightly pale. However, Tang San realized that Possessie's attack, which was similar to Zhu Zhuqing's Daimu Bai's, might have directly shaken him in a Huanjin and broken his entire body. However, Qian Rinchue's attack only caused him internal injuries. The difference was very obvious. It seemed that there was a difference of level 99 as well. It seems that you've improved a lot in the past 3 years on Sea God's Island. Qian Rinchue looked at Tang San, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, and said calmly, "Tell me, where's Wang Feng? Otherwise, I won't hold back next time." Hearing that, everyone's expression changed. Qian Rinchue's strength was completely beyond their imagination. In fact, Tang San could understand, because Qian Rinchue had already reached level 80 more than 3 years ago and participated in the God level assessment. Even they had improved by more than 20 levels. It was understandable that Qian Rinchue had improved by more than 10 levels. Brother Feng didn't come to see God's Island. Tang San took the sausage made by Oscar and quickly ate it. Then, he drank the white beer made by Shun Lingqi and said calmly, "Even if you kill us, we don't know where Brother Feng is. But he's definitely not on Sea God's Island." That was the truth. In fact, even if Wang Feng was really on Sea God's Island, they couldn't tell him. Back then, Brother Feng had ruined 2 of the Martial Spirit Palace's major plans. It could be said that the Martial Spirit Palace's conspiracy was ruined. Tang San could understand why the Martial Spirit Palace viewed Brother Feng as a thorn in their side. Qian Rinchue sneered in his heart. These 7 people were the closest to Wang Feng. How could they not know? However, their relationship was deep. They would rather die than tell him. "Wang Feng, you're quite good at buying people's feelings. Then prepare to die. I'll kill you all. I believe he'll come out." Qian Rinchue's eyes narrowed. She had to find Wang Feng in advance. Otherwise, Tang San and the others would be overwhelmed by the Martial Spirit Palace's army. Wang Feng wouldn't have a chance to escape, even if this was Sea God's Island. What's more, the successor of the Sea God was Tang San. He wasn't Wang Feng. Sea God's Island couldn't protect Wang Feng at all. If I pretend to kill Tang San and the others, Wang Feng will definitely not be able to resist and take action. Qian Rinchue thought in his heart. I'll take this opportunity to force Wang Feng out. Let's see how that bastard can hide. Thinking of this, Qian Rinchue's body suddenly burned with golden flames. The boundless golden domain instantly suppressed Tang San's blue-silver domain. The complete suppression of soul power was also fully reflected in the domain. Tang San's blue-silver domain had evolved many times, especially after absorbing the first God-bestowed soul ring. It also gained a soul skill, omniscient nature, which was very powerful. Tang Sen had seen Qian Rinchue's angel domain when they fought in the Heaven Do Imperial Palace. He knew that his current blue-silver domain was stronger than the angel domain. However, the difference in soul power was too terrifying. Back then on Sea God Mountain, the 7 of them were instantly crushed by Possessi. That scene was still vivid in his mind. At this time, Qian Rinxue was the same. Moreover, Qian Rinxue had a divine artifact that could make up for the gap between him and Possessi. At this time, they were still missing Zhu Zhuqing. 7 as 1. Tang San shouted, "Don't give her a chance." The 7 of them were extremely tacit. Like a long dragon, they poured all their soul power into Tang San. However, at this time, the Golden Angel domain instantly suppressed Tang San's blue-silver domain. It was covered by endless golden light. The 7 of them instantly fell to obstruction in their soul power, and it was difficult to transfer it to Tang San. They couldn't help but be shocked. Even the soul power in their bodies began to become empty. It was a result of their soul power being melted. Their bodies were also extremely heavy, and their strength had decreased by a lot. The 7 of them were shocked. Possessi was restricted from using her domain that day. If she used her domain now, all 7 of them would die with a light stomp of her foot. It's futile. How smart was Qian Rinxue? Naturally, she could tell that the 7 of them wanted to join forces. With her domain, she directly destroyed their plan. End of this chapter. Chapter 824. She raised the golden flame, soared high, and shouted coldly, "Wang Feng, if you don't come out now, your companions are going to die." Silence. It was extremely quiet. Qian Rinxue frowned, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. The next moment, the holy sword in her hand burned with a golden flame that was dozens of meters high. It burned the void and made crackling sounds. At this moment, a blue beam of light came directly from afar. It bombarded the golden flame in Qian Rinxue's hand. Qian Rinxue's face changed, and a golden light burst out from his body. He immediately retreated and looked at the distance with great vigilance. Possessi was flying in the air far away, followed by the 7 saint pillars. Her face was extremely calm. The group of people seemed to be far away, but their bodies were shining with a layer of blue light. In an instant, they had arrived in front of everyone. Obviously, this attack was launched by Possessi. Possessi! Qian Rinxue's face changed. Looking at the woman, his heart sank slightly. He was not afraid. It was just that Possessi had appeared. It would be difficult to find out information about Tang San by threatening Tang San and the others. She was not a god yet. She had just stepped into level 99, and she had not even fully adapted to this huge power. Otherwise, Tang San would have been seriously injured by the golden flame sword mark just now. He might even be forced to reveal his true body. How many years has it been? People of the Martial Spirit Palace still dare to step into the Sea God's Island? Possessi floated in the air, and her cold eyes fell on Qian Rinxue. Behind her, the 7 saint pillars were in a protective position. Her martial spirit was released, and it was shining brilliantly. It was as if it could swallow the rivers. After Possessi finished speaking, she glanced at Tang San. The scepter in her hand shook, and an invisible force seemed to merge with the aura of the 7 saint pillars behind her. It formed an invisible wave that covered the sky and covered the Qian Rinxue. This boundless aura formed a unique Sea God's domain. The Sea God's domain merged with the aura of the 7 saint pillars and was strengthened by the aura of the 7 saint pillars. It was even stronger than when he fought Wang Wu. Qian Rinxue let out a muffled groan. His angelic domain was quickly compressed. His face turned pale, as if he had been stunned by the invisible wave. His mind was greatly shaken, and he was sent flying. "Ha! Possessi, it has been 30 years since we last met. I didn't expect you to still be as elegant as before." Behind him, a golden and gentle light enveloped the Qian Rinxue from afar, stopping the Qian Rinxue from retreating. The forceful voice caused the sky to tremble violently, causing countless clouds to scatter. One could imagine how powerful his aura was and how shocking it was. Possessy focused his gaze on a small dot of light in the distance. Before the person arrived, the voice arrived first. The sky seemed to be covered by a layer of shackles. Possessy and the others could feel the dense energy in the sky, as if it had been imprisoned. Is it the head consecrator of the martial spirit palace, Thousand Daos Lu? Below, Tang San and the others looked at each other. The martial spirit palace actually sent this head consecrator. Although they had never seen Thousand Daos Lu, they had heard Master mention it before. He was one of the 3 peerless Douluo in the world. In Tang San's knowledge, he was a peerless figure who was as famous as his great-grandfather. Possessy had also told him about the past. In the sky, Thousand Daos Lu was invincible. On land, Tang Chun was invincible. In the sea, Possessy was invincible. In the distance, the golden dot of light appeared beside Qian Rinxue as if it had teleported. At the same time, there were also 7 titled Dalu behind him. Gui Ju, Snake Spear Thorny Puffer Fish, Qianjun Demon Vanquisher, and a control-type purple pine Douluo. Perhaps it was the first time they had seen Thousand Daos Lu, a legendary figure on the continent. But in reality, he looked just like a dignified and well-proportioned old man. He wore a light golden robe, and his eyes sparkled with golden lightning. He had a faint smile on his face. When his gaze fell on Bai Sai, there was a hint of reminiscence and sorrow. "Grandpa, we didn't find him," Qian Rinxu said indifferently. None of Wang Feng's companions were told, even if they died. Maybe Wang Feng really isn't on the island. Thousand Daos Lu glanced at Tang San and the others and smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter. Even if he really isn't here, we can capture him and ask him slowly." Speaking of this, Thousand Daos Lu looked at Possessy and said with a calm tone, "Anyway, none of you can escape today." Hearing this, Possessy couldn't help but smile. "Thousand Daos Lu, after not seeing you for so many years, your arrogant and conceited nature really hasn't changed at all. Not to mention that you were defeated by me back then. Decades ago, your martial spirit palace also lost thousands of soul masters on my sea god island. Today, you're here again?" As he said that, in the forest behind Possessy, there was a commotion. Thousands of well-trained soul masters seemed to have already gathered. There were purple-clothed soul masters, yellow-clothed leaders, and white-clothed soul masters. They seemed to be in small teams and not randomly assigned. "Cut the crap," Thousand Daos Lu said coldly. "Possessy, I don't want to make things difficult for you. You can leave by yourselves and hand over that brat called Wang Feng. We will also take these 9 people away. I can make them not take a single step into the Sea God Island." Thousand Daos Lu glanced at Tang San and the others. His meaning was obvious. Try peaceful means before resorting to force. Possessy smiled, and the scepter in his hand shook slightly. In an instant, waterfall-like torrents suddenly rose from the surrounding sea. It was a few hundred meters tall, forming a giant semicircular water shield that enveloped the entire Sea God Island. It was as if this area was isolated from the outside world. Those ships that had yet to enter the range of the Sea God Island were all isolated. "Then let me see if your strength has improved after a few decades." Possessy snorted coldly. The sea god's martial spirit appeared directly, and the 9 blue lights that were slowly being enveloped seemed to reflect each other's colors. Thousand Daos Lu narrowed his eyes and smiled. "I really want to see how strong you are now." The auras of the 2 peerless Douluo were like barrels of gunpowder that could ignite at a touch. There were too many feelings and resentments between the 2 of them. Although the 2 of them slowly faded with the passage of time, they didn't disappear in reality. But now it had become the fuse. In the next moment, the 2 of them disappeared from their original positions at the same time. The entire sky seemed to shake. That water blue light shield actually had a certain effect of restricting the air. However, it wasn't very effective against Thousand Daos Lu, and at the same time, it weakened his strength to a certain extent. That was a special energy shield that the sea god had once set up on the Sea God Island. In times of crisis, It could help the Sea God Island defend against external attacks. At the same time, it was equivalent to an additional domain, similar to the Massacre God domain in the City of Massacre. End of chapter. Chapter 825. It would weaken those who attack from the inside to a certain extent. Only the scepter in Possessie's hand could activate it. The two of them turned into a ray of golden light and a ray of blue light as they clashed in midair. Although they seemed to be in midair, the current environment was unfavorable to Thousand Dao, Flow, and Qianrenxue. The seven titled Dalu were also unfavorable to the seven titled Dalu. Once the battle between the peerless Dalu broke out, the entire sky was shaken into countless streams of mist. Countless amounts of water vapor were evaporated, and the sky within a few hundred meters was dyed into a cloud. The people below could only faintly see the two figures intertwining in the cloud like flowing lights. At the same time, the seven saint pillars locked onto the seven titled Douluo of the martial spirit hall. Without any hesitation, they charged towards the seven of them. The special energy barrier around the Sea God's Island was not invincible. It had a duration. They could only seize the time to quickly get rid of the seven titled Dalu and Thousand Outflow. They had to weaken the martial spirit hall as much as possible. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome when the people from the martial spirit hall attacked. On the contrary, they just had to get rid of Thousand Dao, Flow, and the others. Even if the people from a martial spirit hall attacked, they would only be mid-tier and high-tier soul masters. They would not be able to gain any advantage at all. Only the titled Dalu could affect the situation of the battle. Between the seven saint pillars and the seven titled Dalu of the martial spirit hall, the martial spirit hall was definitely superior in terms of soul power. But in fact, the environment of this place determined that the seven saint pillars were slightly stronger. It could be said that Possessie was indeed prepared for this. He did not hastily fight. Qianrenxue immediately targeted Tang San. Qianrenxue was not seriously injured by Possessie's attack just now. He had even almost recovered by now. Seeing the Qianrenxue attack, Zhu Zhuqing and Bai Chunxiang, who had already returned, were naturally not afraid. "I'll give you one last chance," Qianrenxue whispered. "Tell me where Wang Feng is." Although the current situation was not optimistic for the martial spirit palace. However, Qianrenxue knew that as long as that woman made a move, everything would turn into smoke. Possessie wanted to take care of them, but they were also exhausting the strength of the Sea God's Island. Tang San and the other 8 people were silent for a while, with cold smiles on their faces. Only Zhu Zhuqing frowned as she looked at the Qianrenxue. She felt that something was wrong. Judging from the woman's tone, she did not seem to want to deal with Wang Feng. Instead, she seemed to want to help him. Zhu Zhuqing shook her head. How is that possible? It was impossible for this Qianrenxue to know Wang Feng. "Let's fight," Tang San shouted coldly. With the combined strength of the 9 of them, they might not be able to defeat Qianrenxue, but as long as they could stall him, it might not be impossible. At this time, many of the sea soul cultivators in the forest walked out in formation. Led by the purple-clothed sea soul cultivator, they formed a team of 7 people, with 2 control, 2 support, and 3 close combat. Whether it was the battle between Qianrenxue and Possessie or the battle between the 14 titled Dalu, they were not qualified to participate in it. Moreover, they needed to preserve their strength. After the energy shield was broken, they would have to face the many soul cultivators of the martial spirit palace. However, if Tang San, as the heir of the sea god, could not hold on, they would also be in great danger. If necessary, they would also lend a hand. Qianrenxue's expression was cold. These people really refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. However, in such a situation, would Wang Feng still not come out? Or was it that Wang Feng was extremely confident in his companions? Thinking of this, the holy sword in Qianrenxue's hand was like a rainbow. Golden light flashed in his eyes, and his whole body burned with golden flames again. He attacked Tang San and the others. She wanted to defeat these 9 people in the shortest time. If she could not get an answer, she would directly rush into the sea god's island. Furious waves, desperate situation. Since Wang Feng refined the longing coral into 3 soul crystals, he had been immersed in cultivation and crazily absorbing the energy in the soul crystals. According to Wang Feng's calculation, it would take at least half a month to completely absorb the 3 soul crystals. However, in fact, because his absorption speed would become faster after absorbing the soul crystals, he only needed 13 days to finish absorbing them. He had really reached rank 80. At the end of the day, an immortal herb was still an immortal herb. Even though it was small and had all sorts of negative effects, it was still the most suitable immortal herb for Wang Feng. After refining it into a soul crystal, it was perfect for him to use it to break through the ranks of his soul power. After reaching rank 80, Wang Feng was still not in good condition. He still closed his eyes tightly, as if he was stabilizing his rank 80 soul power. In fact, Wang Feng was trying to use all his soul power to break through the 8th form of the chaotic green lotus. After some time, Wang Feng slowly opened his eyes. A strange white light flashed in his eyes, and at the same time, he frowned slightly. Is the martial spirit hall already here? Wang Feng looked at the clouds in the distance, and his face fell. There's still at least 2 or 3 months before the 3-year deadline. I didn't expect the Martial Spirit Hall to attack the Sea God's Island ahead of schedule. Bibidon is a very rational person. She usually won't ruin her own plans. Is there a reason why they are attacking so early? Wang Feng did not have time to think. He stood up immediately. In the waves below, the 3 great white demon soul sharks were growling at Wang Feng. In exchange, Wang Feng had to help them become 100,000-year soul beasts. However, Wang Feng had been focused on absorbing the soul crystals these days. He did not focus on training the sharks. He originally planned to train them after absorbing the soul crystals. But now that the Martial Spirit Hall had attacked the Sea God's Island ahead of schedule, he had to put this matter aside for now. Although he had cultivated too much, Wang Feng's mind was very clear now. Looking at the blue light barrier in the sky, Wang Feng was faintly worried. In the distance, due to the momentum of the battle, a 5-colored rainbow appeared in the sky. Countless soul skills, martial soul fusion skills, domains, and fusion skills were unleashed on this rainbow, adding a different color to it. However, the actual situation was very obvious. The powerful people of the Sea God's Island, led by Possessi, had gained a great advantage. There was no other reason. The enhancement provided by this special energy shield was too strong. For titled Douluo, even a little boost was enough to determine the winner, let alone this energy barrier that was once set up by the sea god. It was almost visible to the naked eye that the 7 titled Douluo of the Martial Spirit Hall were showing signs of defeat from the battle between the 1,000 Streams and Possessi in the sky. However, in comparison, Tang San and the other 8 people were in a tough battle. It could be said that they were about to be defeated. In the face of the level 99 Qian Renshua, even if they had not become gods, the 9 of them together were no match for him. End of chapter. Chapter 826. Qian Renshua's angel's domain had been weakened by the energy barrier, but was not something that Tang San could resist. No matter what kind of attack they used, they could not cause much damage to Qian Renshua. On the contrary, every attack from Qian Renshua gave the 9 of them immense pressure. Wounds gradually appeared on the 9 of them. Bai Chenxiang, who was the weakest, felt as if her whole body had fallen apart after being lightly knocked by Qian Renshua. She had not recovered yet. As auxiliary-type soul masters, Ning Rongrong, Oscar, and Shun Lingqi could not release any soul skills at all under the effect of Qian Renshua's angel's domain. It was very difficult for them to help immediately. Oscar was the strongest copy of Tang San, but he was no match for Qian Renshua. Only Tang San and Zhu Zhuqing could fight a little. The rest of them were like the ones that Possessi could send them crashing into the ring-shaped seabed with a light push. Although it wasn't that exaggerated, as long as he was hit slightly, his entire body would be sent flying by Qian Renshua's enormous soul power and the special effects of her domain. Furthermore, the soul power in his body would be rapidly purified and melted away. However, they still held on bitterly because they knew that as long as they could hold on, the final victory of this battle would still be on Sea God's island side. Boom! Tang Sin was sent flying again. The 8 spider spears on his back stabbed into the ground as he tried to stop himself from falling back. Although the golden trident in his hand only weighed 50 kilograms, it felt a little heavy at this moment. Tang Sin knew that his soul power was almost depleted. Even one of the 8 spider spears on his back was broken. Qianren Xue is still holding back. Tang Sin had a clear judgment in his heart. It seems that Qianren Xue does not really want to kill us. He still wants to know Brother Feng's location. On the other side, Zhu Zhuqing was also sent flying in the air by Qianren Xue's sword. She barely landed on the ground with wounds all over her body, but in comparison, she was better off. Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun were injured all over. The golden flames on the angelic holy sword were extremely hot, even more terrifying than Fatty's phoenix flames. Even Tang San, who had fire immunity, could not be immune to the damage caused by the golden flames. Qianren Xue had only used one soul skill at the start, and it had crippled most of their fighting strength. 6th soul skill, Angel's Roar, a powerful group spiritual attack. Only Tang San, who had immense spiritual power, wasn't affected by the Angel's Roar. As for the rest, their soul skills and techniques were all interrupted in an instant, and they were all rooted to the ground. Other than that, Qianren Xue did not use any soul skills. He only used the angelic holy sword and slashed. But every slash seemed to carry 100,000 kilograms of weight. Even Tang San could not withstand more than a few slashes before he spat out blood, and his body felt like it was about to fall apart. Qianren Xue looked at the 9 people who were not fighting much, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. She was at level 99, and these 9 people were not even at level 90, but they had dragged it out for so long. They were indeed extraordinarily strong. If she was only at level 96 or 97, she would not have been able to defeat all of them in such a short time. But at this moment, a bright light suddenly exploded in midair, and 2 figures quickly separated from each other. Qianren Xue's expression changed. One of the figures was his grandfather, but he was in an extremely sorry state. Even one of the 6 pairs of wings on his back was broken. His body was covered in blood, but he was full of fighting spirit. However, Qianren Xue could clearly sense that his grandfather was severely injured. On the other hand, Possessi looked very sorry, and his face was pale, but he did not seem to be injured. Fighting in such a place was still too disadvantageous for the 6-winged angels. If not for the energy barrier, the 1,000 Dao stream would not have ended up like this. On the other side, the 7 titled Duo from the Martial Soul Hall were also in a sorry state. Each of them had different degrees of injuries. The 7 holy pillars were unscathed, and they were in high spirits. Although they had expended a lot of energy, their injuries were very light. The Sea Dragon Douluo and the Sea Spear Douluo were still using their martial soul fusion skills. With their martial soul fusion skills, none of the 7 titled Douluo from the Martial Soul Hall were a match for them. If not for the Ghost Chrysanthemum Douluo's exorcism and martial soul fusion skills, he would have been dead by now. He would not have been in this situation. However, after the 1,000 Dao stream and Possessi separated, the 2 groups of people stopped fighting. On one hand, it was because they could not fight anymore. On the other hand, it was because they had achieved their goal. Qianren Xue sighed in his heart. He looked at Tang San and the others lying on the ground and flew to 1,000 Dao stream side. Possessi, we haven't seen each other for decades, but you're still stronger than me. 1,000 Dao stream's hair was disheveled, and he looked like a lunatic. However, he still had a faint smile on his face. Possessi said indifferently, "Since that's the case, do you still want to go against the Martial Soul Hall? If you know what's good for you, you can still leave now. If you don't, I'm sorry, but the Sea God's Island has no choice but to kill you." 1,000 Dao stream was silent after hearing this. Seeing this, the Sea Dragon Douluo said, "Head Consecrator, These people from the Martial Soul Hall will not repent. Since that's the case, let them all sleep on the sea god's island forever. His words were full of killing intent. However, at this moment, the energy barrier in the sky suddenly rippled violently, as if there was a huge pressure pressing down on it. Muffled sounds continued to ring out. Possessie's expression changed. She seemed to have thought of something, and her expression turned gloomy. In the next moment, the scepter in her hand glowed with a dazzling light again. All the soul power in her body went through the scepter in her hand and turned into a blue light beam that surged into the special energy barrier in midair. This defensive barrier was set up by the sea god. The power of a soul master could not shake this layer of defensive barrier at all, unless the other party was a god. Once the defensive barrier was broken, their situation would be difficult to predict. The simplest thing was that Thousand Dao Stream and the others had not been dealt with yet. They would not have any advantage and would be attacked by the Martial Soul Hall's army. The 7 holy pillars seemed to know something. They gathered their soul power and poured it into Possessie to strengthen the energy barrier. However, Thousand Dao Stream and the others did not stop them. Not long after, there was a loud rumble. The entire defensive barrier was broken in an instant. A figure floated in midair, exuding a huge, evil aura. She looked down at Possessie and the others who had been blown away. She was covered with a layer of purplish-black armor that was filled with an evil aura. Her cold face was still snow-white. There were also 12 tentacles on her back that were similar to the 8 spider spears of the Tang San, but they were sharper and more evil. Furthermore, they were not external soul bones, but limbs derived from the martial soul. End of chapter. Chapter 827. After the defensive shield was broken, the 12 tentacles quickly disappeared, revealing 6 thin wings that floated quietly in the air. Her expression was very calm, and it seemed to be completely inconsistent with that evil aura, but there was a strange sense of harmony. At this moment, she was holding a huge black eye that was almost the same size as her in her hand, and it was emitting a cold, evil aura. It was BB Dawn. Possessie's face was pale as he looked at the woman. At this moment, everyone's eyes were also focused on her. Even Tang San and the others sat on the ground and looked at BB Dawn with shock. She looked like the complete opposite of the Pope back then. But now, she looked even more beautiful, especially that calm expression and evil temperament. It was extremely contradictory, but it also gave people an invisible attraction. People could not help but want to look at her. It was as if she had become the center of this world. Hand over Wang Feng and this Tang San. BB Dawn looked at Possessie, and her calm voice made Possessie feel a chill in his heart. Don't resist. Otherwise, the moment the sun rises tomorrow, the sea god's island will no longer exist in this world. Don't try to scare me with the name of the sea god. If the sea god dares to break the rules and come down, there will naturally be other gods who will come down as well. I'm not a god. I haven't become a god. The meaning of Bibidin's words revealed a very fatal and crucial information. However, it made Possessie's heart even colder. It was indeed impossible for the sea god to break the rules and descend into this world again. Even if he did descend, he would only descend in another form and would not be able to exert much of his strength. However, the woman in front of him, although she had not become a god, she truly possessed divine power. She was only one step away from becoming a god. In other words, she was only one step away from the final assessment. Her strength would naturally surpass his, who had just fought with 1,000 streams. The most terrifying thing was that the other party had already revealed Possessie's last trump card. He could not use the sea god to threaten the other party. This meant that even if the other party did not completely inherit the god position, she at least had a clear understanding of the gods. For a time, the entire place was silent. No one even noticed that there were 5 titled Douluo behind BB Dawn. Just Bibidin's aura alone was enough to intimidate everyone present. I know you're prepared. BB Dawn looked at Possessie. Sea god Douluo, are you trying to borrow the sea god's strength to fight me? You sensed my aura a long time ago. Or had he been preparing all this time? But how could I let you have your way? All of you who serve the gods can borrow part of the power of the true gods. But once you forcefully borrow this power, you won't be able to activate the final test for the successor of the sea god. This meant that the inheritance of the sea god would be severed forever, unless we nurture the next great consecrator. A cold smile appeared on Bibidon's face. She had learned this from a true lord of the Moro clan in the Luosha secret realm. This was because the true lord of the Moro clan was equivalent to the great reverend of the Possessi. Furthermore, even if you borrow the power of the sea god, you won't be able to defeat me. It's even more impossible for you to defeat the 5 titled Douluo behind me and the 6,000 high-level soul masters of the martial soul hall. Bibidon enunciated every word clearly. Possessi was silent. The 7 saint pillars were also silent. Tang San and the rest were even more silent. Evidently, the 1,000 Dao flow had only come to stall Possessi and deplete her and the 7 saint pillars' strength. Then, Bibidon came to finish things off. However, Possessi didn't expect the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall to appear with such a strong aura. It was as if he had already calculated everything that she had thought of. After a long silence, Possessi slowly said, "Sea God isn't on the island. If I leave Tang San to you, why don't you just destroy the Sea God's island? I can't do what you said. If you want to fight, let's fight." Hearing this, Bibidon glanced at her coldly. Then, he glanced at the 3,000 soul masters gathered below. "Where's Wang Wu?" Bibidon suddenly asked. "Where is he?" A smile suddenly appeared on Possessi's face. "Wang Wu, do you think he can help you?" Seeing this, Bibidon's expression didn't change. He only said to the 5 titled Douluo behind him, "Kill them." His voice was calm, but it made people's hair stand on end. The 5 titled Douluo walked out and looked at Possessi and the rest. Because they had gathered all their soul power to support the energy defensive barrier, it was directly broken by Bibidon, and they even suffered a backlash from some of their soul power. Whether it was the 7 saint pillars or Possessi, they could be said to be very weak now. Not to mention 5 titled Douluo. Even if 1 or 2 of them wanted to kill them, it wouldn't be difficult. Furthermore, among the 5 titled Douluo, 3 were transcendent Douluo, and 2 were ordinary Douluo. They were very strong. Seeing the 5 titled Douluo walk out, everyone couldn't help but feel a little suffocated. However, at this moment, a voice slowly sounded. "I'm here." A clear and cold voice sounded from afar. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless gazes converged on the figure in the distance. It was Wang Wu. "This Wang Wu is very lucky." 1,000 Dao, Lu shook his head and said, with Possessi's foresight, it's impossible for him not to see through his identity. Even if he was given the Sea God's second trial, if he threatens Sea God's island, Possessi has 100 ways to kill him if he wants to. How rare. Qianrenshua looked at Wang Wu and snorted. He's indeed very lucky. In midair, Wang Wu stood on his mysterious underworld flying sword and quietly stood in midair. Seeing Wang Wu walk out of Sea God's island unscathed, Bibidon slowly nodded and revealed a smile on his face. After not seeing him for more than 2 years, Wang Wu's aura seemed to be extraordinarily stable. Even Bibidon couldn't sense his exact strength. This surprised Bibidon, but at the same time, he was delighted. Hulaina said that Wang Wu had gone through a lot of hardships to complete the trial on Sea God's island. It was normal for his strength to increase greatly. However, it was different when he actually saw it. "Wang Wu, do you know if Wang Feng is on Sea God's island?" Bibidon asked. "It doesn't matter if you don't know. If you really don't know, then I'll make the entire Sea God's island sink to the bottom of the sea. This way, whether he's there or not, he'll have to die. As for these people, it's their own ability that they can survive." Wang Feng. Although Bibidon had changed a lot, his methods were really ruthless. He must have been influenced by some deity position. "No." At this moment, Qianrenshua walked forward and said in a deep voice, "Pope, do you hate Wang Feng that much? You even didn't hesitate to destroy the entire Sea God's island for him? In these 3 years, the Martial Spirit Alliance has never done such a thing. Moreover, What if we really make the sea god angry? End of chapter. Chapter 828. Hate. Bibidon frowned and looked at Qianrenxue. Xiao Shui, this isn't hate. It's a threat. He and the other 7 from Shrek pose a serious threat to our martial soul alliance. The only ones left on the continent are the Shrek Academy and a few other sections. Wang Feng's strength and potential might be above mine. He's already grown. If this continues, I can't imagine the consequences. Tang San and the others can't be left alive. Wang Feng must die. Qianrenxue listened to her unwavering tone and knew that he couldn't convince her. Silence. Everyone was silent. At this moment, Wang Feng finally spoke. Your Highness, you really think highly of Wang Feng. You've already said so much. At this point, Wang Feng sighed softly and said, Since that's the case, Your Highness, please kill me. Hearing this, Bibi Dong was stunned. She looked at Wang Feng and frowned. Why should I kill you? Even if you don't know anything about Wang Feng, I won't blame you. Furthermore, you've done enough on Sea God's Island. Bibi Dong thought that Wang Wu felt that he hadn't found Wang Feng, so he had let her down. Wang Feng, no. Wang Feng shook his head and enunciated each word clearly. What I mean is, I am Wang Feng. After he finished speaking, 7 soul rings flashed on Wang Feng's body. The chaotic green lotus turned into a golden lotus, a red lotus, and a black lotus. Finally, it turned into the god-slaying spear and was held in Wang Feng's hand. Then, 14 pairs of wings appeared on Wang Feng's back. They were the symbol of the dark angel martial soul. One buff after another landed on Wang Feng's body, and with each buff, Wang Feng's aura became even stronger. Finally, the power of the blood patterns was activated. Wang Feng's aura reached its peak. A terrifying aura shot into the sky. When the mask was removed, it was still the handsome and cold face that Bibi Dong was familiar with. Original Sin's Domain. The powerful domain that symbolized Pope Tiff Wang Wu turned into an endless black light that enveloped Wang Feng, making him look like a demon god from ancient times. He exuded the same evil and cold aura, but it was even purer. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had fallen into a deathly silence. Many people stared at the scene with their eyes wide open, especially those from the Martial Spirit Palace. Almost everyone's mind was blank. Even Bibidon's brain seemed to have stopped working and lost the ability to think. It was the same for the Thousand Dao Flow and Qianrenxue. Even the 7 titled Dalu from the Martial Soul Hall, including Snake Spear, who were more familiar with Wang Wu, opened their mouths slightly, as if they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. Not only them, but also Tang San and the others. Their mouths were wide open as they watched. Especially Ma Hongjun, his mouth was so big that 3 big buns could be stuffed into it. Dai Mubai and Oscar were not much better. On the contrary, the other girls were a little confused, such as by Qin Xiang and Shun Lingqi, who had never seen Wang Feng before, were really confused at this moment. Isn't this Pope Tiff Wang Wu? How did he become the Wang Feng that the 7 monsters always sighed about? What's going on? Ning Rongrong's eyes flashed, and she snorted several times, as if she had been prepared for it. But now that she got confirmation, she was also shocked. Although Zhu Zhuqing appeared to be calm, she was indeed the most excited and happy one among them at this moment. The famous white-clothed Pope Tiff from the Martial Soul Hall was actually Wang Feng. This news shocked everyone present to the extreme. Even Possessi was a little stunned, because she did not know much about the continent. She could only infer that Wang Wu was from the Martial Soul Hall. But she was familiar with Wang Feng, because the 7 monsters had talked about him many times in the past 3 years. But she did not expect it to be the same person. At this moment, in the past few years, the stories were like a slideshow in everyone's mind. Those twists and turns, when they recalled it now, made their scalps numb. Cold sweat broke out on their backs. It was too horrible. The people of the Martial Spirit Palace all looked at Wang Feng with a horrified expression. The second in command of the Martial Soul Hall, the most valued person of the Pope, was the number 1 enemy of the Martial Soul Hall. How could this be? Absurd, strange, frightened, shocked, and many other complicated feelings emerged in everyone's mind. "You are Wang Feng." Bibiden's voice was a little hoarse, as if she was covered with a layer of shadow. A purplish-black aura slowly encircled her entire body. Even Qian Rinxue, who was beside her, felt her entire body turn cold. She was greatly affected. "I am Wang Feng." Wang Feng looked at Bibi Dan with deep eyes. "Since you want to kill me, come on." After saying that, he looked at Possessi. The golden lotus in his hand rotated slightly, and he could only cast a recovery spell on them, who had exhausted their soul power. Possessi came back to his senses, quickly landed on the ground, and walked toward Tang San and the others. At this time, the most important goal was to gather them, the people of the Sea God Island on the Sea God Mountain. As long as they were on the Sea God Mountain, without Bibiden's participation, no matter how many soul masters there were from the Martial Soul Hall, they could not walk up the Sea God Mountain. Just a single beam of the light of the Sea God was enough to stop almost everyone. If Bibi Dan was involved, then it would be hard to say. "You guys go back to the Sea God Mountain first," Possessi said in a deep voice. "It is protected by the light of the Sea God. Without the approval of the Sea God, even a titled law can't climb up. Unless it's this Pope. Only Bibi Dan had the ability to destroy the Sea God Mountain." Tang San and the others also suddenly came back to their senses. They looked at Wang Feng in the air and were speechless for a moment. "Ha ha." At this time, Bibi Dan let out a laugh. "Want to leave? Don't even think about leaving today." Bibi Dan looked at Wang Feng, and several lights flashed in her eyes. There was confusion, anger, shame, shock, and some pain and helplessness. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He could barely sense Bibiden's feelings. After all, he had been with her for more than a year. It was a pity that he did not succeed in the Rakshasa secret realm. Otherwise, there would not be such a scene today. "Great Consecrator, what are you waiting for?" Bibi Dan squeezed a few words out of her teeth. "Kill him." Thousand Dao Lu nodded in realization, as if he was still immersed in this huge shock. After living for so many years, this could be said to be the most incredible thing he had ever seen. Thousand Dao Lu was much better than Possessi, who had lost all of his soul power. Although he was seriously injured, his self-healing ability was not weak. At this time, the main force of the Martial Soul Hall had arrived, and there were many healing-type soul masters accompanying them. They could ensure that they could fight for a long time. In a chapter. Chapter 829. Qian Rinxue's heart skipped a beat. Bibi Dan was one thing, but now his grandfather was also involved. Wouldn't this guy be dead for sure? But he couldn't go now. Did he have to fight with his grandfather? "This bastard," Qian Rinxue gritted her teeth. "Everything was fine, but you actually imitated me and became a spy. To think that I even asked you to pretend to be the Pope in the white robe. No wonder you acted so well. You're just acting yourself, right?" Although he was angry, he was also very anxious at this moment. At this moment, Bibi Dan let out a shrill cry. A purplish-black light spread out in all directions like the tide of the sea. The boundless domain instantly covered Wang Feng and even shrouded Possessi's group, who were leaving. I said, "None of you can escape." Bibi Dan let out a thunderous roar. Her voice exploded in the void like thunder. The purplish-black aura made her look like a goddess of death. Even her pupils were filled with a purplish-black light. "Rakshasa domain?" Wang Feng frowned slightly. This domain instantly covered over. Even the original Sin domain couldn't resist it. The difference in soul power was too great. The chaotic green lotus true body in Wang Feng's hand appeared. The huge green lotus with a green light pillar that shot into the sky fixed in this world. Even Bibiden's domain couldn't invade the surroundings of the chaotic green lotus true body. Wang Feng spun in the air. The chaotic green lotus white flag dispersed half of the lotus leaves. However, the green light could only be maintained in a range of 50 meters around Wang Feng. Seeing this, Wang Fengxin was shocked. Bibiden's strength was probably stronger than the deep-sea demon whale. With his current strength, The green lotus flag could only disperse the domain power in a range of 40 meters. Bibidan's domain of a few thousand meters was probably not worth mentioning. I'm afraid that the innate 5 directions domain can only disperse the domain power in a range of a few hundred meters. Bibidan hasn't become a god yet, but she's already so strong? Wang Feng couldn't help but think. However, a mere Rakshasa domain shouldn't be able to stop Possessi's group. At this moment, the 1,000 streams of light attacked him. He also had a sword in his hand, but it was not the angelic holy sword. Instead, it was a secondary sword that was also burning with golden flames. The current strength of 1,000 streams should be above that of Qian Renxue. After all, the 1,000 streams have been stuck at this level for a very long time. Senior, I don't want to hurt you. I advise you to leave. Above Wang Feng's head was a green lotus that glowed with divine light. He held the god-slaying spear in one hand and a small green flag floating in the other. Brat, I spared your life last time. This time, I won't spare you. Dalu laughed out loud. In just a few years, you have already grown to this extent. Come, let me see your strength. As soon as he finished speaking, Dalu's body shone brightly, and the long sword in his hand began to spit out golden flames that could devour people. The red soul ring on his body shone with a dazzling light. Boundless golden light rose from Dalu's eyes, and a terrifying aura rose from his body. Ninth soul skill, judgment of the great radiant heavens. Dalu roared and pointed his sword at Wang Feng. An illusory cathedral that was a few hundred meters tall rose from Dalu's scarlet soul ring. After that, it disappeared and appeared above Wang Feng as if it had teleported. It directly suppressed him. Wang Fengxin was stunned. He felt as if his entire body had been imprisoned, and he could not move. When the illusory cathedral landed on him, he felt as if he was being pressed down by a 1,000-meter tall mountain. This illusory cathedral shone brightly, and there seemed to be 1,000 steps. There were also countless illusory angels holding golden long swords, looking majestic and solemn. At the top, there was a cross. When it pressed down, Wang Feng happened to land on this cross. Although it was just an illusory image, Wang Feng felt as if he was really tied up. Clang! As the ancient bell chimed, Wang Feng's mental energy shuddered. Immediately after, he saw Dalu holding a golden long sword and walking towards him. Then, the sword slashed diagonally, as if it was going to cut him in half. Whoosh! Almost instantly, the golden long sword was about to slash towards him. Wang Feng quivered, and the dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness let out an angry roar. The wings on his back bloomed with dazzling light, and the blood patterns on his body seemed to be burning. However, he felt as if there were countless threads binding him, and he could not move at all. He could not help but be shocked. What kind of soul skill is this? It can actually disregard my strength and soul power status and bind me? Could this be? Wang Feng looked at the countless golden threads on his body and the illusory cathedral, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. The god-slaying spear disappeared, and the red lotus suddenly appeared. In the next moment, countless karmic fire covered his body. The golden threads were burned the moment they came into contact with the karmic fire. Wang Feng felt his body empty, and the god-slaying spear appeared in his hand again. Spirit severing. Wang Feng looked at Dalu, who had already used his deified soul skill and could naturally use the first move of the absolute wind lightning spear. This move did not require the true power of heaven and earth. It could be used with the power of lightning contained in the deified soul skill. Its power was much weaker than the second move, Heaven and Earth Tempest. However, Wang Feng was too strong now. With his deified soul skill, soul-devouring blood wings, the power of the blood patterns, and the dark angel martial soul, all his attributes were increased by almost 40 times. In addition, his body had been cleansed by the chaotic divine light, his 800,000-year soul ring, and his 500,000-year invisible enhancement. The power of his spear could be said to be extremely strong. Clang, clang. The spear and sword intertwined, and almost instantly, Dalu's sword was sent flying. Immediately after, Dalu's entire body was sent flying by this spear technique that was shrouded in purple and green. When Dalu saw Wang Feng break free from his great radiant heavens of judgment, and even the speed of his sword paused, he was in disbelief. In addition, he had not recovered from the injuries he had suffered from possessy, and it was even more impossible for him to receive Wang Feng's spear. If he was in his best condition, Dalu should be able to receive it. However, he could not do so now. After sending Dalu flying and even vomiting blood, Wang Feng also felt a huge rebound force that made his arm numb. He was a little shocked. These rank 99 exceptional Douluo are not simple. They're already in such a state, but they still have such strength. That soul skill just now was extremely strange. It was not restricted at all. Not only did it bind his body, but it even bound his mind. Wang Feng guessed that the illusory cathedral was probably something similar to the power of faith. The golden threads on his body that he could not break free from should also be the power of faith. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to break free. However, it was different from the resistance of the sea god's trident. This power of faith was used to bind, not resist. Wang Feng tried to burn it with his red lotus karmic fire, and he realized that the power of faith seemed to be unable to withstand the burning of the red lotus karmic fire. In an instant, the golden threads were burned. He took this opportunity to counterattack. End of chapter. Chapter 830. This 1,000 Dao flow is quite something. Wang Feng broke out in cold sweat. The 1,000 Dao flow was concentrated in Wang Feng's sword. The majestic power shocked him even more. No one could break free from this ninth soul skill unless they were a god. When he fought with Possessy earlier, Possessy used the power of the sea god to break free. This kid didn't obtain the power of a god, not even a little bit. How did he break free? Did he burn himself with fire? The power of this spear was almost the same as an attack from him when he was in his best state. What level is he at now? I'm a rank 99 exceptional Douluo. 1,000 Dao flow couldn't help but tremble. The first time he saw this kid, he wasn't even 15 years old. Now he was 24. How many years has it been? He's just a kid who hasn't inherited a godly position. How can he be so strong? Grandpa, are you okay? Qianrenshu asked with concern when he saw his grandpa vomiting blood. However, his gaze landed on Wang Feng. 1,000 Dao flow. Can't you be more serious? I'm the one who's injured. Qianrenshu seemed to have realized this too. He quickly turned to look at 1,000 Dao flow. Grandpa, this kid is a little strong. Let her handle him. 1,000 Dao flow didn't answer. He only looked around and frowned. What's wrong with these people? Qianrenshu suddenly looked at the aquatic soul beasts on Sea God's Island. Tang San, Possessy, and the others were also there. Other than Possessy, everyone else was in a daze. Even Possessy was in a daze. He seemed to be unconscious. Everyone else's eyes had lost their color. It was as if they had lost their souls. Your mother is a genius. 1,000 Dao flow's eyes flashed. She actually used such a method to keep them all here. Qianrenshu didn't understand. At this moment, the 5 titled Douluo didn't attack Wang Feng. It was very simple. They couldn't beat him. If they went, they would probably be killed instantly. White-robed Popetiff's name shook the world. They were also titled Douluo of the Martial Soul Palace, so they naturally understood Wang Wu's strength. In addition, he had cultivated on the Sea God's Island for more than 2 years. Even the great consecrator 1,000 Daos Lu had been sent flying with a single spear strike. These 5 titled Douluo quickly attacked Tang, San, and the others. Because they were in a daze, they were completely unconscious. It was impossible for the Rakshasa domain to have any effect. Wang Feng naturally noticed this as well. He knew that the effect of this Rakshasa domain was nothing more than arousing the evilest and most despicable thoughts in a person's heart, which would then be absorbed by BB Dawn into a special divine power. However, BB Dawn had yet to become a god, so it could not absorb it at all. It could only be used to stimulate such thoughts. However, it was not to the extent that everyone was stunned, as if they had lost their souls. From this aspect, the Rakshasa domain was similar to the original Sin's domain, but it was much weaker. After pondering for a few seconds, Wang Feng roughly understood. He could not help but be amazed by Bibidan's idea. Bibidan was using the Rakshasa domain to arouse the evilest thoughts in a person's heart. From there, it would lure them to release the evilest thoughts in their hearts and guide their souls into the Rakshasa secret realm. It was important to know that the mysterious god's inheritance space in the Rakshasa secret realm was countless times more dangerous than the sea god's island. Once a soul entered, it would die if it was not careful. Most importantly, entering the Rakshasa secret realm was equivalent to being slaughtered by Bibidan. This was because the Moro tribe inside was invincible, just like how Possessi was invincible on the sea god's island. In the Rakshasa domain, no titled Douluo could defeat the Moro tribe. Thinking of this, Wang Fengxin broke out in cold sweat again. Back then, Bibidan had shared her evil thoughts with Wang Feng to guide him into the Rakshasa secret realm. He did not expect her to use a similar method here. She used the Rakshasa domain to guide so many souls into the Rakshasa secret realm. Wang Wu. At this moment, Bibidan looked at Wang Feng with an extremely cold gaze. Now, their lives are in my hands. Wang Feng looked at her. As long as I give the order, they will die in a Rakshasa secret realm instantly. Bibidan's hands trembled slightly. It seemed to be caused by excessive anger. You've been to the Rakshasa secret realm before. You should know how dangerous that place is. Their souls have entered there. Without my permission, don't say anything. They won't be able to survive in the Rakshasa secret realm. Wang Feng fell silent. At this moment, Tang San and the rest, as well as Possessi and the 7 holy pillars, were surrounded by an evil aura. Everyone had evil thoughts in their hearts. Everyone had evil thoughts. Wang Feng's body had been tempered by the red lotus karmic fire because of his physique. Even if he had evil thoughts, they would be instantly purified. They were different. Bibidan's move was too powerful. What do you want? Wang Feng asked calmly. I'll give you 2 choices. Bibidan stared at him. 1. You can continue to be the Pope Diff Wang Wu. Cut off all your previous relationships and join the Martial Spirit Alliance. I can let bygones be bygones. I can even let some people go. 2. You could defeat me. At the same time, you'll face the situation where all of them are going to die. You'd better think it through. Bibidan looked at Wang Feng. Her fingers trembled slightly. However, she controlled her expression very well. She was extremely calm. After she finished speaking, even her eyes became calmer. Dalu frowned slightly. He did not expect that with Bibidan's temperament, she would actually ask someone who had betrayed her to stay. This was simply inconceivable. Qianrichue was also extremely shocked. Was this really the autocratic, cold, and heartless Pope? She actually asked someone who had betrayed her to stay? Grandpa, is she serious? Qianrichue whispered. The previous plans of the Martial Spirit Palace were all directed by this bastard. He played the Martial Spirit Palace in the palm of his hand. Even she was played, but she actually asked him to stay? It's different, Dalu muttered. Although Wang Feng is a spy, in fact, he has helped your mother in many ways. Not to mention patrolling the entire continent, subduing the forces, or the soul hunting plan. Because these are nothing to the Martial Spirit Palace. Without anyone, she could have done it herself. But the point is, he once gave your mother a very compatible 100,000-year soul beast. At the same time, Dalu paused. He helped your mother pass the 8th test quickly and perfectly. That's why she's in this situation today. Hearing this, Qianrichue fell silent. You're a F***king spy, and you've already done this? No wonder you're her confidant. In other words, perhaps in this world, no one knows your mother better than Wang Wu. Dalu shook his head. That's why she's so sincere in asking him to stay. End of chapter. Chapter 831. Hearing this, Qianrichue gritted her teeth. This bastard, in order to infiltrate the enemy and gain her trust, He even gave her 100,000-year-soul beast. Do you think 100,000-year-soul beast is a cabbage? How despicable. Also, he helped her pass the 8th test. Qianren knew how difficult the divine test was. Without her grandfather's help in the past 3 years, she wouldn't have been able to pass so many tests. Moreover, it seemed even more difficult for her to inherit the divine position. There's more. Bibidin's tone became calmer. I know about your relationship with Xiao Shui. I've looked into it. You two met when you were 6 years old. When you left the Pope's palace and met the high priest, it was Xiao Shui who exonerated you and asked the high priest to let you go, right? According to the dream god machine, you saved Xiao Shui twice as Feng Yuxiu. In the Heaven Do City Palace, you used the identity of White Pope Diff to cover her retreat. You were very close on the way. I know about your relationship. Xiao Shui rushed here to find Wang Feng, not to catch you, but to save you. At this point, Qianren face turned red. It was normal for this matter to be found out, but he didn't expect her to hide it so well. I thought she had a special way to contact you, so I didn't expose you. She wanted to use this to find Wang Feng, but since you are Wang Wu now, I promise you. Bibidon glanced at Qianren and said slowly, on the first condition, I agree to what you did before. Bibidon said it well. She didn't say that she would marry Qianren to Wang Feng, but only agreed to what they did before. This way, she could avoid Qianren disgust. Nonsense. Qianren blushed and said coldly, there was nothing between me and him. However, although she said that, she looked at Wang Feng with a hint of expectation. Kid, I've given you a chance. Let's see if you can grasp it. Qianren said with a smile. Choose between life and death. Wang Feng was silent. It was a choice again. Why did these women always have to choose? Choosing at the drop of a hat. F*CKU. I don't want to choose. Can't you choose both? Wang Feng asked. I really hate to do multiple choice questions. Bibidon, Qianren 1,000 streams, the three of them twitched their mouths. Even the title Douluo twitched their mouths. As expected of the Pope Diff Wang Wu. Shameless. Qianren glared at Wang Feng as if her eyes were about to spit fire. Wang Feng, you're dreaming. Choose both of them. He wanted to continue being the Pope Diff king, but he didn't want to cut ties with them. He even wanted to Bibidon to let them go. How could there be such a good thing in this world? What's wrong with dreaming? Wang Feng asked. Do I not even have the right to dream? You. Qianren looked at Wang Feng angrily. She had always been unable to outtalk Wang Feng. He's so shameless. 1,000 streams couldn't help but curse. This brat really wants to provoke Bibidon's anger. No wonder he can attract such a girl. Sigh, if I had been more shameless back then. 1,000 streams' eyes flashed with melancholy. She glanced at Possessi and shook her head. However, at this moment, Bibidon suddenly laughed. Her smile was beautiful. Sure, Bibidon's smile was like a reward. It was a beautiful smile for someone who was about to die. Really? Wang Feng was stunned. Really? Bibidon smiled and nodded. Then her smile froze. If you can save them, you can defeat me. I'll let you choose both of them. Wang Feng, F*CK. How do I fight? Fight with my head? Wang Feng, I advise you to stop daydreaming. Qianren said coldly. Hurry up and choose. Don't waste time. Either you die, or we die together. Our relationship hasn't reached that level yet, right? Wang Feng looked at Qianren in surprise. You want to die with me? Qianren was stunned. Her face darkened, and she said coldly, I mean, you want to die with them. Who wants to die with you? Wang Feng smiled and looked at Bibidon. Then I'll try to save them and defeat you. Hearing this, everyone looked at Wang Feng in astonishment. Bibidon frowned. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Bibidon's gaze was like a sharp blade, as if she was going to cut Wang Feng into pieces. Let's wait and see. Bibidon clenched her hands, and her eyes began to become uneasy. Obviously, she didn't believe that Wang Feng could do this at all. No matter which one, he couldn't do it. In the Rakshasa's secret realm, there was no way out. Other than her, the inheritor of the Rakshasa deity, no one could enter the Rakshasa secret realm as they wished. Moreover, Wang Wu couldn't enter the Rakshasa secret realm. There was no evil in his heart. It was extremely pure. Otherwise, he wouldn't have attracted Xiao Shui. And if he couldn't enter the Rakshasa secret realm, it was impossible to get these people out. Moreover, there were so many of them that it was even more impossible for them to come out at once. Bibi Dan knew that Wang Feng had the original Sin domain, which could absorb the evil and use it to enter the Rakshasa secret realm. However, not everyone had the evil aura that she had condensed back then and could share it with Wang Feng so that he could enter the Rakshasa secret realm. That was because she was the inheritor that she could do this. If Wang Feng wanted to enter the Rakshasa secret realm in this way, it was obviously impossible. Similarly, Wang Feng's original Sin domain couldn't completely absorb the evil thoughts and emotions that he had lured out of these people and make them come out all year round. Because these evil thoughts were produced all the time. Unless the source of the evil in their minds could be eradicated, it was useless to just absorb them. It was impossible to absorb them all. As expected, Bibi Dan saw Wang Feng walk in front of Tang San and the others and begin to use the original Sin domain to absorb the evil aura that was scattered out of their bodies. However, after absorbing a little, it didn't weaken. Instead, the evil aura on everyone's body became more and more intense. It caused a backlash. The more he absorbed, the more he absorbed. He even began to tremble. Wang Feng withdrew the original Sin domain and frowned slightly. The evil aura on these people's bodies had been lured out by Bibi Dan. Unless Bibi Dan died. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to absorb it all. Then, Wang Feng turned his hand and released the innate 5 element flags. Seeing this, Bibidan's eyes narrowed again. Obviously, Wang Wu had lied to her again. Previously, the flag martial soul had only changed into different abilities, but it was actually different forms. There were a total of 5 flags. Each of the innate 5 element flags had the effect of repelling all evil and being invulnerable. Among them, the green lotus flag had the effect of calming one's heart and could expel the evil in one's heart. The light of the green lotus flag enveloped them. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the evil aura on their bodies quickly dissolved. Everyone calmed down. However, none of them returned from the Luosha secret realm. It's useless, Bibi Dan said calmly. The evil in their hearts is gone, so they will definitely stay in the Luosha secret realm. Don't you know how to leave the Luosha secret realm? Everyone has to cultivate to the point where they can face the evil in their hearts or expel the evil in their hearts. Only then will it be possible to leave. What you expel is the evil aura on their bodies. It's not the evil in their hearts. Bibidan's words made Wang Feng fall silent. Wang Feng put away the 5 element flags and thought for a while. He said slowly, "Let's try this. P.S. 14 chapters first, 6 chapters at night. I'm too sleepy. Please give me a monthly vote." Chapter 832. As soon as Wang Feng finished speaking, the soul power in his body quickly circulated and fused with the huge chaotic green lotus martial soul true body above his head. As he spoke, Wang Feng looked at Bibi Dan and the others. Actually, at this time, Bibi Dan could directly make a move. Yes, that's right. Bibi Dan could completely make a move now. Although the 1,000 Dao flow was severely injured and was defeated by his heaven and earth wind thunder, it did not have much combat strength. However, Qianren Xue still had combat strength. 2 against 1, he had no chance of winning. Death was the only outcome. Not to mention that Bibi Dan still had 6,000 high-level soul masters behind her. It would be easy for her to plow the sea god's island to one side. It was even more impossible for Little 3 and the others to survive. It could be said that Bibi Dan wanted to kill any one of them now. It was just a matter of a thought. Pulling all of them into the Rakshasa mystic realm was simply too powerful. Wang Feng did not expect Bibi Dan to use such a method. It could be said that she had completely grasped the initiative now. The reason Bibi Dan was able to give him a choice was because she had once said that he was the only person who knew all of her secrets and had helped her a lot. In fact, there was another very important point that Bibi Dan might not have realized yet. In the 8th trial of the Rakshasa mystic realm, he did not want to help her. Instead, he wanted to cut off her chance of inheriting the deity position. If Bibidan used Wang Feng's identity to revisit the Rakshasa mystic realm, she would definitely discover this key point. In that case, Bibidan would not give him a choice at all. She would directly make a move. Of course, it was also possible that Bibidan had already discovered it, but pretended not to know, or she still thought that she was helping her. But no matter what, Bibidan now had the greatest initiative. Although Wang Feng could leave by himself, if he left, Tang San, Zhu Zhuqing, and Ning Rongrong would be captured by Bibidan even if they did not die. Wang Feng also understood that Bibidan gave him a choice because he occupied a certain position in her heart. Perhaps it had nothing to do with feelings, but more to do with the fact that they were close friends. However, the price of becoming her confidant was to sever their relationship. Wang Feng could not do that. What's the use of having a close friend? With Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing around, Xiang he was much more powerful. Therefore, Bibidan's choice was either nothing or both. The first step was to pull all these people out of the Rakshasa mystic realm. Neither the original Sin domain nor the innate 5-element flags worked. They could only absorb and expel the evil in their hearts. The karmic fire of the red lotus might work as well, but once it burned, the evil in their hearts would indeed be burned away. However, they would probably die as well. Back then, Wang Feng had used the red lotus karmic fire to temper his body. It had taken him an unimaginable amount of precious materials and time to complete it. Setting aside the 6 immortal herbs, the myriad spirit ice heart in the myriad elephant valley was even more powerful than the ice fire yin yang well. Only then did Wang Feng successfully complete the refinement. Since there was no other way, Wang Feng only had one last move left. If the last one did not work, Wang Feng could only feign civility and temporarily choose the first option. He would pretend to submit to Bibidan and continue to be the white-clothed Pope-tiff. He would sever their relationship and save the lives of Zhu Zhuqing and the others first. A huge amount of soul power surged into the chaotic green lotus. The green light pillar became more and more dazzling. Bibidan and the others watched with rapt attention. Their hearts were actually trembling slightly. The 3 of them were among the strongest experts in this world. Naturally, they could feel that this mysterious green lotus was nurturing a huge amount of energy. What kind of martial soul was this? At this point, even Bibidan knew that this mysterious green lotus martial soul had mysterious and unfathomable abilities. It could transform into many forms, and each form had unimaginable abilities. Not to mention the others, each of the 5 small flags contained unimaginable abilities. They could remove the enemy's domain and restore their spirit. They could contain 100,000-year soul beast. They could control the power of the sea water. Even if one of these abilities appeared, it would be very impressive. But there were a total of 5 small flags. Moreover, as powerful as the 5 small flags, there were 5 other different martial soul forms. More than 10 pairs of eyes stared at Wang Feng and the green lotus above his head. At this moment, in the center of the chaotic green lotus, the last lotus seed among the 4 lotus seeds emitted intense light. Wang Feng felt that the soul power in his body was rapidly draining and pouring into the lotus seed. The next moment, countless cracks appeared on the lotus seed, and then it bloomed. White. It was an endless white with a hint of green. The pure white lotus petals bloomed in the void, as if purifying the world. Bibidan was startled. He actually felt that part of the divine power in his body was purified by this new white lotus. The anger and evil caused by all kinds of emotions just now also disappeared inexplicably. His eyes became slightly calmer. The Rakshasa god was actually not a good god. After inheriting this god position, not only her body, but also her temperament would undergo a great change because of her identity. The most obvious change was that kind of extremely evil divine power, which would greatly affect the appearance, body shape, and temperament. It turned out that after passing the 8th test, Bibidon got rid of the inner demon, and his mental state rose to another level. But after these years of resting on the Rakshasa god's inheritance, the evil in his heart grew more and more. Like the Rakshasa domain, it absorbed the most evil thoughts and emotions of all kinds of creatures as nourishment. How could he not be affected? If he was not careful, his soul would be devoured by those evil thoughts, and he would lose himself. There was also the Rakshasa god's inheritance and the various divine skills of the Rakshasa god. Once cultivated and used, countless evil desires would surge out of the body, which required great willpower to control. The more profound and powerful the cultivation, the stronger the impact of this evil desire. Bibidon wanted to find Wang Wu in advance because the other's aura could calm her down a little, so that she could inherit the Rakshasa god position more safely. She could also use the original sin domain to absorb a part of this evil desire. It reduced her pressure a little. So this was also the reason why Bibidon wanted to come to the Sea God's Island quickly to find Wang Wu and give Wang Wu a choice. Sometimes Bibidon deeply suspected that if she really became the Rakshasa god, she would probably be controlled by this evil desire. She would do a lot of evil things, causing the situation to become difficult to control. Bibidon did not want this. She wanted to control the Rakshasa god, not be controlled by a god position, become a slave to the desire of the god position. And now, because of these years of cultivating the Rakshasa god, the evil desire in her body became more and more majestic. In the aura emitted by the White Lotus, it was actually slowly disappearing. This was completely different from pure absorption. Absorption was only a temporary solution, but this kind of purification was a permanent solution. It could help her from the root. Thinking of this, Bibidon seemed to understand something. In a chapter. Chapter 833. What is this? Dalu stared straight at the White Lotus. The budding lotus petals flickered with a round luster, as if they could purify all the filth and evil in this world. They didn't know. It was impossible for them to know. Wang Feng looked at the White Lotus. It was so pure that he couldn't bear to destroy its pure white color. Even the air seemed to have been purified. World-cleansing White Lotus was the 8th form of Wang Feng's rank 80 chaotic green lotus. Even if he didn't know its effects, he could guess from its name and aura. It had the effect of clearing one's mind, stabilizing one's primordial spirit, and purifying all things. In this aspect, it was much stronger than the green lotus flag of the innate 5-element flags. The green lotus flag could only calm one's heart and restore one's spirit. It could expel evil and force all evil to retreat. But it didn't have the terrifying effect of purifying all things. Of course, this was a martial soul. Perhaps it wasn't as exaggerated as truly purifying all things. But purifying the evil in one's heart wasn't a problem. Wang Feng shouted softly as he felt the pure aura contained in the White Lotus. It actually had a faint feeling of compatibility with his body. Vaguely, Wang Feng even felt the illusion of joy from the White Lotus. This made Wang Feng a little stunned. It was a thought, although it was very faint. Martial souls didn't have consciousness. Could it be that my martial souls can become real? Wang Fengxin thought of an unbelievable idea. All along, although the chaotic green lotus was strong, in Wang Feng's imagination, it was only a martial soul and not a real chaotic green lotus. In the form of a martial soul, it formed a primordial treasure in the legends, but it was still a martial soul. Its power was limited. However, if these forms could all become real, then it would be a completely different concept. One had to know that these forms were all formed by relying on his soul power. Without soul power, it was nothing. Thinking of this, Wang Feng felt that this idea was a little ridiculous. Even if he became a god, he couldn't make the chaotic green lotus become real, right? At least, it was impossible in this Douluo world. Moreover, he was still a long way from becoming a god. The appearance of the White Lotus and the feeling of compatibility with his body made Wang Feng feel more enlightened. Then, the White Lotus slowly appeared in Wang Feng's palm. Wang Feng felt the feeling of being connected to his mind. He couldn't bear to put it down. Perhaps it was because it was compatible with his body, but the white lotus made Wang Feng feel closer to him. Then, Wang Feng activated the white lotus body, causing it to emit a soft light that enveloped Tang San and the others. His soul power was rapidly draining away. Wisps of formless black mist began to spread out from everyone's bodies. At a rate visible to the naked eye, everyone's faces began to relax. Under the purifying effect of the white lotus, the evil in their hearts that had been lured out by the Bibidon slowly disappeared. His mind began to stabilize. Immediately after, the group of people's eyes trembled slightly, and their entire bodies trembled. It was as if he was being pulled back by a great force. The next moment, starting from Tang San, everyone began to open their eyes slowly. Among them, Possessee, who had been struggling, was the first to wake up. To be precise, the evil in her heart was not small. It was just that his mental power was too great, and he also had the power of the sea god. That was why he hadn't been pulled into the Rakshasa's secret realm. Even so, he had been fighting with his own heart. After opening their eyes, everyone was at a loss. Then, they saw Wang Feng's figure. They were in the Rakshasa's secret realm. The moment they entered, their souls trembled. The evil energy in that place was too strong. After entering that place, the evil in one's heart would continue to be magnified, and it would be harder to control it. This was one of the reasons why it was so difficult to leave the Rakshasa's secret realm. It wasn't easy to leave these lands of legacies. In the capital of massacre, one had to win 100 battles and walk through the road to hell. In the Sea God Mountain, one had to pass all kinds of crazy tests. Of course, the Rakshasa's secret realm was also extremely difficult. Most importantly, as soon as their souls entered, they were surrounded by countless Moro tribe members. One had to know that there was a rank 98 Moro true lord among them. In the Rakshasa's secret realm, even Possessee couldn't defeat this Moro true lord. Wang Feng. Everyone looked at Wang Feng. Although they didn't know what was going on, they knew that Wang Feng was the one who pulled them out of that strange place. Besides them, the 7 Saint Pillars had also slowly awakened. Possessee was a little silent. There were still other aquatic soul beasts. Wang Feng's 100 refinements didn't cover a large area, so he couldn't wake them up in batches. He wasn't a generous person, and the White Lotus consumed a lot of soul power. It was already good enough that he could wake them up. Ning Rongrong looked at Wang Feng and was about to rush over. She was still crying out, "Bastard, I knew you were Wang Feng." Ning Rongrong walked over to Wang Feng and hammered his shoulders angrily. However, she was stopped by the others. As soon as Wang Feng's identity was exposed, BB Eastern Rakshasa released her domain and instantly pulled them into the Rakshasa domain. They didn't know what Wang Feng and BB Don were talking about. "Let's leave first." Wang Feng looked at Ning Rongrong. This girl looked dumb, but she was actually smart. He didn't know when she discovered his identity. Now that he thought about it, maybe when Ning Rongrong said to him, "Crawl for me," she was probably testing him. Because this was what he had said to Ning Rongrong when the two of them first met. Later, when he pulled out the golden trident, Ning Rongrong said that if it was pulled out, it would follow his surname. In fact, it was also a little bit of discovery. After that, Wang Feng glanced at Zhu Zhuqing. Then he turned to BB Don. "You really want to go against me?" BB Don glanced at Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing in Tang San's group. When everyone heard this, they were a little confused. "Didn't Wang Feng want to go against you?" "I have no choice." Wang Fengxin sighed and said calmly, "It's a very simple reason. If I give up on him now, I will definitely give up on the martial spirit palace in the future. Will you agree with such a person who can give up and betray his companions at will?" However, BB Don looked at him mockingly. "Haven't you already betrayed and given up on the martial spirit palace?" "Betrayed me? Oh no, you're a spy." There was a hint of coldness in his tone. "So, didn't I say that I've already made my choice?" Wang Feng said. Hearing this, BB Don raised his eyebrows, and anger appeared in his eyes out of nowhere. "Who do you think you are? You want to make your choice? You can pull them out of the Rakshasa's secret realm, so you're capable. Do you really think you can defeat me?" After that, the Rakshasa demon scythe in Bibidan's hand flowed with a purple-black halo, exuding an evil and dizzying aura. When Tang San and the others heard this, they were even more stunned. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.